Mr. Simpson, we urgently need to speak to you on a matter of grave historical importance.
Ah, nerds!
No. My colleagues and I are the historians of America's great inventors and enlightened men.
Ooh, hokey man.
It's true. And one of the most confounding puzzles in American history can be solved by your dog.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Springfield Googleplex, the movie podcast for Simpson fans, brought to you by ThatShelf.com. Every episode, we talk about a movie parodied on The Simpsons. Maybe it was The Simpsons that introduced us to the film, or maybe when we finally saw it, we realized, hey, that's where that Simpson joke comes from. Regardless, each week we pick one that one of us hasn't seen or hasn't seen in a while, watch it, and come together to discuss. I'm your host, Adam Scholes, and joining me as always is the Benjamin Franklin Gates to my Riley Poole, my co-host, Nate Storing. Remind me who Riley is? Is that an insult? Did you just insult me?
No, Riley's the tech guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's actually,
Justin
these
Bartha?
are actually pretty, of all of the pairings that we've done on this podcast, I feel like this one is actually one of the better comps of
fair enough.
I'm the nerdy history buff and you're the nerdy tech guy.
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, I would have preferred to be Christopher Plummer, but, you are technically older than me, so...
Sure.
Well, this week, we watched John Turteltaub, what a wonderful name, John Turteltaub's ludicrous 2004 action-adventure blockbuster, National Treasure, which you might remember from such Simpsons episodes as Season 20's Gone Maggie Gone, and Season 37's Irrational Treasure, which also happens to be the episode we are going to be discussing today. Season 37, Episode 14, directed by Debbie Mahan, written by Christine Nangle, original air date February 15th, 2026, and in this episode, the Simpsons family, including Santa's little helper, goes to Philadelphia to attend the National Dog Show and finds themselves caught up in a historical conspiracy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Guys, you don't normally cover modern episodes of The Simpsons. What's going on here? Well, Nate, could you explain why we're covering an episode from season 37?
Well, first of all, it is the 800th episode of the show, so that's quite a milestone. But also, we have a very special guest with us to help us break down this episode. She's a writer, co-executive producer, and occasional voice actor on The Simpsons. She's also written for Inside Amy Schumer, Saturday Night Live, Kroll Show, and The President Show. It's the writer of this episode, Christine Nangle.
Christine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Before we get into the episode and the movie, though, I do want to sort of get to know you a little bit better. So what are you like as a movie fan? Like, what are some of your favorite movies that define your taste?
I wouldn't say that much of a movie buff. I kind of like a lot of people where I just kind of found movies I liked as a teenager and I just keep watching those over and over again. Or, and my older years, I have a 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old, so I don't watch anything and haven't for 3 years. But I kind of avoid movies that are going to stress me out on some level because I have a hard time shaking feeling. So kind of like probably one of my favorite movies is Jurassic Park, for example. Just a movie I've seen a million times.
Amazing.
I really like it.
Funny that you say you don't like movies that would stress you out and you pick Jurassic
I know.
Park, which is not exactly a chill movie.
Yeah.
But
That's
it is a classic.
point.
It is
Yes.
absolutely a classic. Did you see that in theaters when it first came out?
Yeah, I saw it. I remember my younger brother and I saw it. I think we were too young to see it, but my grandfather dropped us off at the theater, and that was just a fun memory. And then we didn't have cable when I was growing up, so we just had a handful of movies on tape, or I guess eventually DVD, and so we just watched the same things over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I only had a handful of VHSs growing up, and they were Black Beauty and The Indian in the Cupboard.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
The Frank Oz classic.
Yeah.
Taped off of TV because we would have the commercials memorized that were coming up next or whatever.
Yeah, these ones were purpose bought as the movies, but Adam's family was very big on the recording off of TV, including many Simpsons episodes, of course.
Yes, of course. I mean, my dad also he was. I wouldn't call him a cinephile or a big movie buff, but he had a Costco membership, and so he bought a lot of VHSs at Costco. So we had like a vast library of movies, and then like as I got more into movies, I started purchasing my own, including the Nicolas Cage classic The Rock, which watching National Treasure again,
so
I couldn't help but think about that. So yeah, exactly. So and another Jerry Bruckheimer production, I'm pretty sure. But talk to me a little bit about like your history with The Simpsons, because like I mean I don't know if you were like Nate and I and grew up watching the show religiously, but what is your history with The Simpsons before writing for it?
I'm not somebody who has like an encyclopedic memory about anything, let alone The Simpsons, but I did grow up watching it, of course, and loving it. And when Selman wanted to bring me on board, I told him as much, and he was like, "Good, that's good. I don't want someone that is like a super fan." And right. I'd worked on these other shows, and I have a ton of sketch comedy experience, which really helps with a show like this, where there's just like tons of jokes and short little set pieces and stuff. And there's so many people that are on the show have been here for so long that you would think that the people on the show that have been here for so long have an encyclopedic knowledge of the show, and even they don't. Like, we have to look at Mike has probably talked about this if he's been on the show. Like, we'll have to be like, wait, have the Simpsons ever been to Philadelphia? Could somebody look this up? Like, we're always looking up that kind of thing.
Well, Christine, when we were scheduling an upcoming episode with friend of the show, Mike Price, besides being very complimentary about your work, he also told us that he approached you as like a co-showrunner with the idea of doing an episode about The Simpsons in Philadelphia. So can you just sort of talk us through a little bit more about the genesis of the episode?
Sure. That's where I'm from, born and raised. And I just realized I'm wearing an Eagles sweatshirt right now.
Appropriate.
It's kind of a thing like that we just kind of had like, oh, at some point we should do this Philly episode. So it wasn't like something that was like a fully formed idea. And several years ago, like 8 years ago or something, The Simpsons went to Boston. And I remember seeing that and like, and Selman had brought up over the years, like, it's crazy to say over the years, but like, doing a show in Philly. And I was like, I feel like a lot of the stuff that you did in the Boston show, we would do in Philly. So like, we'd have to come in have a different angle. Right. And so we, Mike and I had talked about it a bunch and kind of thinking like, well, what would get The Simpsons there? Like what, is there anything special about the city that would draw The Simpsons there for whatever reason? And, one of the things we talked about was that there's the National Dog Show is technically just right outside of Philly. Although it was like a Philadelphian, it was never a thing that was like on the radar. And so we talked about like, oh, well, what if the dog started doing dog show things? And I can't even remember at what point it became a National Treasure thing about the dog. I honestly can't remember. Mike says I came in one day and said it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds good.
So I actually like live, sort of in the Philadelphia orbit, just on the New Jersey side, like across the river. So, I was very excited to see many of the references, but I was curious if there was like one thing that you were like, this 100%, this Philly thing absolutely has to be in the episode. Like, I'm thinking particularly for the locals. For the locals,
I would say, and I'm not sure it turned out great, but I wanted him to be Homer to be eating a soft pretzel at some point. And they gave us the design for a soft pretzel, and it was like the heart-shaped Bavarian pretzel. And I was like, no, that's not the shape of the pretzels that we eat. We do not eat that shape. And so in this scene, when he's in the art museum, he's holding a pretzel and eating it. And it's pretty close, I think, to what I was hoping for.
I love that. I'm a big pretzel fan as well. I was just, right before you got on, I was saying to Adam, when I first moved to this area, I was like going around to like the farmers markets and stuff. And I was like, man, these farmers markets are exactly like the farmers markets where I grew up in Ontario in this place called Kitchener. It's because all of the Dutch Mennonite folks from this area went up there. Oh. And so all of their markets are up there. And I grew up eating soft pretzels.
Oh, what shape?
They were heart-shaped.
They were the heart-shaped ones.
But, they're still good pretzels.
I think the reason that they're shaped almost like oblong, trying to describe to the listener. So like they would come in like a chain and you could break them apart.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big part of my childhood. So I wanted that to be in there. And then I really wanted, especially because we were talking about dog shows and stuff, which I think are stupid. I don't understand why dog breeds are important or any of that stuff. There's just so many dogs that need homes. I was so excited that they let us keep the Michael Vick joke in there.
Yes.
Michael Vick organized and ran this dog fighting ring and hurt dogs, killed dogs with his own bare hands, and then went on to play for the Eagles. So I was excited that we got to do that.
Yeah, definitely. There should be some reparations, eh?
Yeah.
So in this episode, you have Homer sort of discovering that Philadelphia is his kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about that. What is it about Philadelphia that you feel like has this sort of connection to Homer?
I honestly think that's like a perspective that I don't necessarily have on Philly, or I didn't when I lived there. And then when I left and lived other places, I got to understand what people's perception of Philadelphians was. And it's just like big, dumb idiots, kind of. And which is interesting. But I think that was like kind of just because we wanted to make it like hyper local, like the pretzels or whatever, but we also wanted to make it like people who don't know it, don't even have a stereotype of what they think Philadelphia is, and people who have an idea of what they think Philadelphia people are. And so I think just because sports is just a mass communication source, I think that the idea of like what Philadelphia fans are like is a big one, because sports, especially football, is like that's when you actually like people across the country get to see actual Philadelphians is like in the stands of these sports. And so then of course it's like, oh, this must be how all the people are. So, and then of course you just have a couple stories about the town that kind of go viral. But so Homer fitting into that is just really, really funny. I can't explain it.
I get it. I think the energy makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking of like famous Philadelphians, am I using that term? Is that the term, a Philadelphian? I know that
he's Canadian. You'll have to forgive him.
Yeah, exactly. How did you go about picking who was going to be like your Philadelphian guest stars? Like I know there's Kevin Bacon, which as a person who always plays 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, thank you for putting him in The Simpsons, because now that has unlocked basically everything.
Yeah.
Like how did you go about deciding, well, this person is who we're going to use to like represent our city?
For the dog trainer, I just kind of knew right away that I wanted to get Quinta Brunson because I just think she's awesome and so funny. And Questlove too. Like I say, like, so downtown in like in the historical area of Philadelphia, they have like colonial reenactors walking around. There's like a Ben Franklin and the Betsy Ross and colonial people that you can like ask questions and stuff. And I've always said they should have someone that dresses as Questlove and also walks around downtown.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea.
And then Kevin Bacon, there's this one part with the hotel concierge.
Yo, welcome to the Hotel Philadelphia. We offer 24-hour room service from our full boys to menu. And if you need a water or any other John, just ring the patio bell and we'll send a jabroni right up.
And that was just kind of a thing I added in at the writing stage where, like, whereas I think we just in the outline form or whatever had like, she checks in at the hotel. And I was like, we have all these ideas for references that we want to put in the show. Like, how can I find a way to get them in? And that's when I came up with the idea for the Hotel Philadelphia and, whatever. And so there's some people from the city and surrounding suburbs have a certain way of speaking. And we thought it could be good to have like a nice little part for that. Like we weren't going to make the whole episode about that or whatever. Like we were maybe just going to have one of our actors do it. But I remembered I had heard Kevin Bacon do it somewhere. And I just was like, I just think he could do this. And we kind of made that call pretty late. And so he ended up having to record it to picture, meaning he had to like watch what we already had. I'm sure if that hadn't, and it was only a couple weeks before it aired, but I'm sure if that wouldn't have worked, we would have figured out a way to make it work. But he just from like the first second was just it was exactly what I wanted. It was just so great. And then, and I was realizing that like a lot of times when I meet someone who says who's from Philadelphia, they're almost always not actually from the city. They're from like one of the suburbs or towns outside or South Jersey. Mm-hmm. And Quinta, Questlove, and Kevin Bacon. And we had Boyz II Men do the theme song.
Right, yeah.
They're all actually, and me, we're all actually from the city.
Philly.
Which,
nice.
Yeah, it was like inside, like our zip codes would pass the test or whatever. and everybody was just so great. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Kevin Bacon is one of my favorite, like, living Philadelphians, too, because his dad was, like, this famous city planner in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Edmund
right?
Bacon. I have his book somewhere downstairs. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember studying him in college, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's super cool.
One part of the episode that I particularly loved, because I'm also a pet owner, was the heartfelt speech at the end that Marge gives.
I was so stupid. Having any pet is stupid. When we got Santa's little helper, we didn't just say, yes, I'd like to rescue this dog. We said, hi, I volunteer to have my heart ripped out of my chest someday. Because no matter how much time we get to have together, it will never be enough.
It really just, like, hit home with me, because that's how I feel about my pets as well. Yeah. And, you know, I didn't want to get a cat. We have 2 cats. I didn't want to get
I
pets.
knew it was cats when you said pet owner.
Oh, interesting. There you go. That's right. Fair enough. I didn't want to get like cats for so long, because I was like, I just took it so seriously as like, you're taking on the responsibility of like this other living being's life, and you got to be ready to actually do that. Right.
Yeah.
So, hearing just the way that Marge articulated that was so beautiful to me. And I was just wondering if that came from a personal place for you, because it feels like it did, I guess. That came across.
Yeah, this episode was really personal for me, because we were breaking the story and writing it after I had lost my dog, Philby, of 11 years. And yeah, everybody kept expecting me to cry during the writing process. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And he was a pit bull, which is also why I hate Michael Vick so much. But the end speech where Marge thinks that the dog is dead and says, like, having a pet is stupid. Like, why do we do this? That was something I, like, from the beginning wanted, like, in there. I think when we were breaking the story, it was like, oh, and then maybe Marge has a speech about it, whatever. And there was moments when it was on the chopping block, and I was like, no, this has to stay. This part of the speech especially, because so many people have said stuff to me, like, at the table read for this episode, I cried during that speech, because Julie was so fantastic, just playing the emotion of it. And then, like, after that table read, so many people that were there came up to me and were like, I was crying. I've never cried at a table read before. And I think it was, nobody thought the dog was dead. It was just that she was speaking to this feeling of, like, how much you love them and how much they mean to you. Yeah. So that part was really important, that it wasn't just like, oh, the Simpsons go to Philly and this silly thing happens. And part of Marge's whole journey with the dog throughout, like, kind of came from this idea that, like, my dog, Philby, was, like, his body was a little messed up. His front paws were, like, turned out, like he was a little ballet dancer. And so he always had all these issues with his bones and stuff. And so I ended up having to do, like, physical therapy for him, and, like, spent so much money. But he's like just the most special guy. And like, just thinking about, like, the really hard stuff that you end up having to do with pets, and who's the person that ends up having to do it. And like, what kind of bond do you feel? And especially if you feel like it's your fault. So some of that stayed in, some of it didn't, but the thing with the grapes, like the dog eating the grapes, and Marge really felt like that was her fault. So it kind of, like, helped her kind of buy into, like, okay, I got to fix this problem.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I love that part of the episode, like the sort of the ending, because, we've talked on our show a lot about how we think that the best episodes of The Simpsons aren't necessarily the ones that are the wackiest or have the most jokes or whatever. It's the ones that are the most heartfelt. I mean, we were recording an episode about the Christmas episode where Bart steals the video game and, like, Marge catches him. And, like, I was getting emotional just recapping the episode, because it's like the idea of, like, disappointing your mom is like, it gets you. And like, again, this is a milestone episode because it's the 800th episode and everything, but like I think it kind of it really encapsulates everything that we love about the show, which is, yes, it's movie parodies, yes, it's, you know, a travel log, but it's also at the heart of it is this very emotional element that I absolutely loved.
Oh, good.
Totally.
But jumping from the emotional element, let's talk a little bit about National Treasure. I mean, what is your history with it? Like, do you remember the first time you saw it? What was it about that movie that made you want to bring it into the world of The Simpsons?
To go back and answer your first question about what kind of movies I like, it's really making me realize I love 90s thriller, like over-the-top 90s action movies. Like I'll just like get in the mood and I'll be like, we need to find that like one, or like we need to find a heist movie or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like The Rock, I've seen 8 billion times. And actually for the scene at the end where they're in that like underground structure, whatever, like I was like, and then the music, but like figured out months later, I was actually thinking of the music from The Rock for that one scene.
Right.
Yes. I knew it. I was like, when I was taking notes on the episode, I wrote down, is this music from The Rock? But they're very similar, National Treasure and The Rock, the score.
Yeah.
So funny.
Awesome. That's great. So I think, I don't remember the first time I saw it. I definitely saw it on TNT or TBS or something like that.
Right. Okay.
But just kind of, I guess I like movies that are over the top, not too serious, but then always, you know, there's like a lead actor or actors who are so insane that you believe like what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess that,
a Nicolas Cage type, as it were.
Exactly. Or like Wesley Snipes or Harrison Ford.
Yes. Yes.
So that's just the kind of movie that's just like rewatchable because it's so crazy. And then, of course, it was always fun to see like the Philadelphia stuff in there. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm curious because you sort of in this episode you capture the sort of like paranoid, convoluted exposition that this movie's kind of all about. And you know, when I was rewatching it, I was like, it's kind of like Indiana Jones meets History Channel garbage, like you know, like just like all like Ancient Aliens stuff, or like I don't know, like Hitler's giant gun, So how did you come up with the sort of new historical conspiracy in the episode?
I think it was just like as soon as we realized, oh, it's going to become a National Treasure thing, but it's going to be about the dog. That all just fell into place. Although both Mike and I read the Walter Isaacson biography of Ben Franklin while we were writing this, or we were breaking the story.
Okay.
And then we kind of became insufferable because we just wanted to talk about it to people.
Ben Franklin facts.
It's great. I mean, I listened to it while I was driving, but it's just like crazy how much this guy did in his life. But he wasn't someone who was interested in gold or like fancy things. And so when we kind of were like, we were like, is there a treasure? Like, what is it? And I just remember being like, just by the way, like Ben Franklin wasn't into gold. He wasn't into like things like that. And they're like, oh, Nangle, stop being Nangle for a second. But yeah, it kind of just pretty much like we had different versions where, you know, when Quinta finally, like, I mean, you have to figure out like, does Quinta's character know the Hoagie Men? What's their history? Like all these things that were maybe going to be in there but weren't, and then all just dropped out by the end. Like it wasn't the key. It was like going to find his slippers, Ben Franklin's slippers, and like going into like Independence Hall or something, and then like the Simpsons, like, and then peeing on the Rocky statue, and then Homer peeing on the Rocky statue. So there's all these like ideas that we had. It was like Santa's little helper peed on the Rocky statue. Oh, also, it was at the dog show, Santa's little helper went crazy and bit off Bradley Cooper's face. I forgot about that.
Oh my God.
It was like right at the beginning, it was going to be like, okay, he's ready. He's going to be a champion. And then he, as soon as like he starts, he just like destroys the whole place, and he sees Bradley Cooper and bites his face.
Bradley Cooper lives near me, apparently.
Oh,
He,
really?
like, lives across the river, but apparently he like what is it? He like cold dips in his creek in the backyard and goes to the local gym. I've never seen him around, but anyway.
Oh, and then like one of the crazy things he does when he gets loose is he pees on the Rocky statue. So then the whole city of Philadelphia is after the Simpsons, and then the only way that they can get people's respect back is if Homer pees on the Rocky statue or something. Like that was in one of the original like outlines or whatever. So it just got so streamlined into like people like treasure, gold, let's find it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I mean, I love the trail of clues. I think you just like really captured the spirit of the movie and all the like weird nonsense that gets connected. You even get like the colonial era 3D glasses in there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
That
a
was
great
really fun.
touch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and not only I talk about getting it, like I think Hank Azaria and the animators do like this fantastic like Nicolas Cage impression.
Yes.
And was that mostly their interpretation, or was there like a specific essence of Cage's persona that you guys were trying to capture?
I remember when we asked for the design, we asked for it to be like lightly influenced by Nicolas Cage. And then the design we got back was like a perfect caricature of Nicolas Cage. And we had to say like, no, less Cage.
Sure.
There was a moment where all of the Hoagie men had Nicolas Cage hair. I can't remember when we lost that. But it's hard because like you want people to get it. We're doing a National Treasure thing. And like,
right.
we even have Hank say he is a national treasure. And we thought about like maybe asking Nicolas Cage to do it, but then you kind of run into the thing of like, if he says no, then can we not do it? Or is it weird?
Right.
If you ask a celebrity to do it and they say no, and then you have an impression, that's can be a little bit weird. Yeah. And the animators, I mean, they're just so great. And Debbie, who directed this episode, I mean, it was just every time we got like a new version of it back, it was just better than the last. It was so good.
Yeah, the sort of ups and downs in his tonality, like where he'll just be like talking and then suddenly he'll get really loud, was just like, spot on.
Yes, awesome.
Well, and it also perfectly, I felt, and it perfectly encapsulates that era of Nicolas Cage. Because, like, again, you know, you can go back and watch Moonstruck and be like, oh my God, like, I had no idea Nicolas Cage was like a heartthrob. And then, but my memory and knowledge of Nicolas Cage is sort of that, like, Matchstick Men, National Treasure, The Rock era, where, he's going very big and very over the top. But,
man, I really want to watch The Rock now. Or Con Air.
I know, right?
Like
to
the Nicolas Cage point, like the animators did such a great job. The moment where Quinta's character says,
"Do you know who started the first volunteer fire company in America? It was
Benjamin Franklin."
Like that is one of my favorite parts of the episode because he's so deadly serious, and the way that they like light him in that moment and everything like that it was just like exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, totally.
The lighting in this episode is amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Especially that whole like chunk when the big reveal, like the twist happens, as it were, and like you just sort of like again, as you said, kudos to the director Debbie Mahan because she really did knock it out of the park here.
Yeah, and that's one of the coolest things about this era of The Simpsons is that like every episode can be so cinematic in a lot of ways, right? In a way that, you know, of course, like the early days of the show look great in their own right, or at least once you get to a certain point. But like they couldn't do things like this. So like it's amazing to be able to have that level of lighting and detail and like recreations of areas of Philadelphia and then all sorts of imagined stuff too. It's pretty amazing.
We're lucky.
The episode also has a bunch of other non-National Treasure references, and I just sort of want to highlight a few of them. The big one being, and that I got very excited about because it's a show that my wife and I are obsessed with right now, and actually the new episode airs tonight, and she's very upset that I am recording, so we can't watch it. But you have a parody of the Pitt featuring actors from the real show, and then caricatures of some of the actors who are not speaking. But it's what I was sort of struck by was that's kind of a unique thing, or at least compared to the era that we generally cover on our show, to be riffing on something so contemporary. I mean, like that show is still airing. It's only in its second season. Yeah. Is that something that has sort of become a little more possible and a little more flexibility? Again, to Nate's point of like, the technology has evolved to allow the show to be a little bit more referential of stuff that's currently happening, as opposed to prior years where like it was being made a year out, so you didn't necessarily want to cover something that new.
That's a great question. A couple things. One, like that Mike Price was just obsessed with that show and wouldn't stop talking about it. And that's like one of the cool things about the show is like, if you have a thing, whatever your thing is at the moment, you could figure out a way to put it in an episode.
Right.
If you can make it accessible to people who aren't as familiar with the thing. But yeah, it's just that we didn't see it being even like a big part of the show, or like when we originally conceived of it, it wasn't like, oh, and then we get all the actors from the Pit. I think it was like while it was unfolding, the Pit was getting all these accolades and stuff. But we recorded, not Noah Wyle, but recorded the other two actors before the Emmys. So it was like before Catherine Lanasa won an Emmy.
Wow, right.
So like me and Mike were at the Emmys and like we went up and we were like, hey, you probably don't recognize, because we only did it recorded on Zoom. She was so nice. Right. But yeah, that's one of the things about like modern Simpsons, where even if it's something current, you know that we could have clips that go viral and people who are watching the show see them. And then of course we had the people from the Pit retweeting them or whatever words we're using now. And it just worked. Like we didn't force it at all. It was like, we're going to go to an emergency room. How can we make, because it was hard. We went so back and forth so much on like how sick or sad should the dog look. Because it's like, you could show a dead body of a human, but like you don't want to show a sad dog. Like,
no, that is not a good move.
No, so to be able to have a thing we could really play with at the dog St. Bernard of Assisi medical hospital or whatever, or veterinary hospital was helpful too, because then we didn't have to like really actually think about like the dog being in pain or anything.
Yeah.
And then after I left college, I went to college in Philly. I moved to Pittsburgh and lived there for 5 years and fell in love with that city. And it just like so happened. So it's like people that like my friends in Pittsburgh were like, did you just make this whole thing about your life? And I'm like, that wasn't even me. Like I had to watch that show because like Mike wanted to put it in the show.
When they were announcing all of the awesome guests on this episode, and they were like naming all these Philly people, and then they were like, and then the stars of the Pit, and I was like, wait, what? How is that? I was trying to imagine how it was all going to fit together, but it totally did.
I saw people online being like, oh, they messed up and they confused Philly and Pittsburgh. I'm like, no, get it.
No,
like I know they're 6 hours apart, but yeah, it was cool to be able to work that in, and the actors were Taylor Dearden and Catherine Lanasa just said, my understanding is they both just said yes without like checking with anybody.
Right.
and it just recorded with like, because like, I think then Noah Wyle like asked, am I allowed to do this? And then kind of got to know at first. And like, we kind of were like, so, and then at some point we got him and he was like, so I don't even think he knew that there was a no at any point. Like, I think with actors it's like all going through their reps or whatever. And you just don't want to do anything to jeopidize whatever project you're working at the time.
Sure.
And then he was so great. He was so great. We wanted him to be super intense, and he was just so great.
Give me 30 cc's of Pelastamine, 4 heliostic probes, and the most ultra-realistic, gory-looking stomach pump we've got. Where's the nice, mousy intern who always maintains her youthful optimism in the face of constant trauma?
That would be me. May I say?
Shut up! We have a greyhound to save.
Who's a good boy? You're a good boy.
Cram that tube down his throat!
It was a great moment, and again, you picked weirdly my 3 favorite characters on the show. So seeing them on this, I was just like, "This is my lives are converging. This is so wonderful." Like
awesome.
It was fantastic. I mean, but the other big sort of thing that is covered, which is one of Nate's favorite things, and I can only imagine how excited he was,
is ambrosia.
Yes, exactly. Ambrosia.
I did grow up with ambrosia salad, but
big ambrosia guy.
Not as excited to see it again.
Yeah.
No, but he is a big fan of the Rocky series and actually introduced me to Rocky. So
awesome.
I do feel like we need to sort of unpack the Rocky of it all.
Yes.
And the side of beef statue literally had me laughing out loud to the point where my wife had to come check on me.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And I mean, of course, as soon as you have a character named Adrian in a Philadelphia episode, you know it's a Chekhov's Adrian, right?
Yes.
And at some point, it's going to happen. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, are you a big fan of the Rocky series? Is that one of those sort of movie franchises that like hits your sweet spot, or is it just sort of like you grew up in Philly, so it's around?
Yeah, it's just around. What's funny is the Adrian yell out was not in the original script, or it was in the table read, I think. I can't remember, but it wasn't. I named her Adrian because we were going to get more into her backstory, but we ended up cutting it where when she talks about why she's a dog trainer, she says, my dad was a down on his luck boxer who raised down on their luck boxers. And so I just thought that was like a funny joke. And like, I don't know. And Adrian was just her name. And then we were trying to find a below to act 2. And like, oh, it's looking back, it's so obvious, it's right there. And one of our writers, Jess Conrad, who's from South Jersey, and she's super funny. And she just kind of pitched it. And it was like we almost all should have just like got up and went home and been like, why are we here if none of us saw that right in front of our faces?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the thing with the statues, like one of the, like thinking about this episode, I didn't want it to be like, I mean, of course you have to get into like the hoagies and the cheesesteaks and Rocky statue, but I wanted to try to put a spin on that stuff and not have it just be about like the 5 things that people know. So I felt like the extra statues like was a really good take on that. And one thing that we added, like after we saw one of the color versions, was the one cat, Polly.
Oh yeah, so you got Apollo, Mickey. Polly, Clupper Lang, Ivan Drago, Hanging Side of Beef,
and then we had like
Thunder.
we listed like every Rocky that they're in on their things, and the one was like weird. It's like, why is this guy in like 1 and 2 and 7? And then we looked it up, and it's like, oh, because it's a flashback. So or whatever numbers. I don't know if I'm getting them right. And so like I asked that they put flashback on the thing. So it's like
yes, that was another great another great
nice detail. Yeah.
So like stuff like that to be able to go back in and add. I mean, it's always budget dependent, but that was really cool to be able to add that joke in.
Yeah, one of the other little details about the sort of Rocky parodies that I loved was, you have the training montage with Santa's Little Helper, but the song playing is not from Rocky. It's from like the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, Staying Alive, by Sylvester Stallone's brother, right?
Yep.
Frank Stallone.
Yep.
So I love
amazing
that. Far from
that.
over.
Yes. Yes.
That movie is a piece of
I think
work,
we watched that one
sure.
together, maybe.
I'm pretty sure we did at some point, yeah. And then obviously over the end credits, there's a bunch of Philly-related movie posters. So you got Creed, Philadelphia Story, Philadelphia, The Sixth Sense, the aforementioned, Mannequin, which again, talk about a deep cut reference.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, Mannequin! I haven't thought about that movie.
Matt Selman and I both were like Mannequin fans. And there was originally in one of the versions a Mannequin 2 on the move. It's called Tour of the City or something. There was something I can't remember. Homer was like particularly obsessed with seeing something from Mannequin, but I can't remember what that was. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to do the like Canadian thing, because whenever there's a Canadian in something American, you always have to be like, she's Canadian, right? So I know of Mannequin because Kim Cattrall's in it, and she's Canadian, right? Although I think technically she was born in England, so I don't know that but she grew up here.
Anyone who ever set foot in Canada is technically Canadian. That's usually
exactly
the way those rules work.
We will take what we can get. But then anyway, so then you also get 1776, which I what a great poster, and including Maggie is such a nice touch. And then National Treasure with Homer wearing the hoagie strapped to his back, which is just an amazing moment. Are there any other like deep cut references that we missed? I mean, again, Nate lives in and around the area, so he's a little more attuned to this. I'm a Canadian. I live in Toronto, so like I'm less familiar with all the Philly stuff. But is there anything else that we overlooked that you guys snuck in there?
There's Wawa, which is like the local kind of convenience market. He's eating we would say water ice, which is like an Italian ice in the boat at Boathouse Row. And the boat that they're rowing in has a UPenn thing on it, which was Matt Selman's request. He and I both went to Penn, but not at the same time. But I never talk about it, and I like never admit that that's where I went. And I was like not wanting to do it, but we did it. And I was like, yeah, if it's small. And then it was so big, and I was like, really? Do we have to do that? He's like, you want to be able to see it? I was like, do you? But like, do they need more attention? And then like just like a couple little slang words here and there. And then I did a voice of the security guard. So I got to throw in some local slang, but yeah.
Well, to that point, can you explain, because again, I love Questlove's podcast for people who are like music nerds. It's like one of the best music nerd podcasts ever because he's such a big music nerd himself. What is a John? Because like he uses that term all the time, and it's one of those things where like I pretend to know what it is, but I haven't, and I saw it multiple times in the episode, but I was like, I know this is a Philly thing. I have no idea what it actually is.
It doesn't really mean anything. It just means like thing. Like,
okay.
That's why like in the episode, it's like chocolate Johns, whatever, or just like you say like, oh, hand me that John over there. Or, oh, I saw him over at that John. It just kind of means like the thingamajig.
Okay.
Great. Or what do you call it?
It's I like it. I'm gonna bring it to Toronto. We're gonna make it a thing up here too.
It's definitely
good luck with that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really kind of a if you know, you know thing. And I actually after the episode, I saw a clip of Quinta Brunson, I think it's from years ago on Colbert, explaining like some Philly slang, and one of the things that she explains is drawn.
There you go.
But yeah.
Do we have slang in Toronto, Nate? Like, what is something that we would have that's like the equivalent? I can't even think.
There are like some like Toronto things, but I'm trying to think of what they are. A lot of them are like about places in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But there was one that I was thinking about recently. What the hell was it? It's like the way that you say it.
Hey guys, it's Adam from the future, and Nate and I actually just spent the last week together, and you'll hear all about that next season. But anyway, you remember the thing he was thinking of, which is the way Torontonians, or maybe Canadians in general, always go, holy, which I don't really think I do that much, but Lily Singh did actually make a video about it, and Nate sent it to me, and so clearly it is a thing, whether or not I want to acknowledge it. So, holy! Anyway, back to the show.
Anyway, I can't remember, but...
I do say a lot. I am a stereotypical Canadian in that regard, that I do say a, and all my American friends call me out on it. So
I still say
a.
So.
Yeah, it's I am constantly getting like ragged on here for the way that I talk. And like one time I was talking to Joel Cohen, who's a Canadian that's been writing on the show for ages and ages, and he has a little bit of Canadian accent. And like he and I were talking, so having a side conversation, and this guy Nick who was in front of us, somebody was trying to talk to him. He's like, I'm sorry, there's too many regional accents happening right now. I cannot concentrate. But like today I said, what did I say? Waterlogged or something like that. But I said it wrong. And then like it's people like make fun of me, but then I'm like, yeah, I said it fine. Okay, can we move on? Yeah, let's move on.
We've had guests on this show that immediately are like, you guys aren't American, are you? Like, because we don't necessarily tell them, and then they'll be like, where are you from? And when we say we're Canadian, they're like, oh, okay. Although Nate's
I've
Nate
lived
is
in the United States for like over a decade, and I still say about, and that's always the thing where people are like, oh, I know you're a Canadian, and you get like outed in the moment, and it's always
that Michael Fassbender ordering 3 drinks.
Yeah, exactly. From
from Inglourious Basterds. But I think like I don't know if you watched Kroll's show, but we kind of explored this idea a lot in this sketch called Pennsylvania that we did a couple times. But it was like apparently Pennsylvania is the most linguistically diverse state in the nation.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of like accents, like different things that are recognized as regional accents. But it was like, there was a pawn shop in Philly and a pawn shop in Pittsburgh. And the Pittsburgh accent is also pretty wild. People, I think, are just starting to understand that the regional way that Philadelphians talked because of like Vera Vistown and stuff. Some people had their eyes open with Kroll show, but in Pittsburgh, like at the Pitt a little bit. But the whole sketch, the thing I loved about it was just about like, you think your city or your place is so different from everywhere else, and so that sketch was about like the Philadelphians thought that they like their things were so different from the Pittsburgh people, and they thought like, no, this is a Pittsburgh thing. And it's like, nobody knows the difference between, like, any outsiders wouldn't. It's like, it's just about how people feel themselves. Like, I don't feel like that sketch at all was about like how other people see those places. It was about like intense regionalism and like how you see yourself. And I remember like the night before that aired thinking like, nobody's going to get this. It's so specific. And like, again, I lived in Pittsburgh for 5 years. And Nick Kroll said that was like one of the sketches that people always want to talk to him about. Like even people that are not from anywhere near there, because it just like hits the nail on the head of like, oh, we call it soda. We call it pop. We call it this. And like when you step out from it, it's like, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I feel like when I moved to the States, this is one of the things that like I picked up on was that in Canada, I feel like, or in Ontario, at least where we grew up, we didn't talk about regional stuff that much. It wasn't like, the difference between this place and that place and all of that. And I didn't even really understand the different cultures in Canada, like, you know, what like the East Coast in Canada is like Nova Scotia and all of that, or the West Coast. I didn't understand any of that. Whereas like I feel like Americans are very sensitive to regional stuff, even at a super micro level.
Yeah, I wonder what that's about. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you guys have a lot more. Like you've got all those states, and we've only got so many provinces. So like, and it's bigger area, and
fewer people.
But fewer people.
Lucky.
Well, Christine, this has been so amazing to chat with you. One of the things we always ask our guests is, first, would you recommend National Treasure to our audience?
So your audience is probably like dorky Simpsons fans?
They may not like to associate themselves as dorks, but I can assure you that they are.
I would be surprised if most of your audience has not already seen National Treasure.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
I think it's an interesting, and this is just an accidental tie-in of like this summer is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, which, you know, big celebration in Philadelphia that I wish I could be excited about, but things aren't going so great here. Not sure if you noticed. That'll be a fun reason to watch it. But like if you go in knowing that it's insane and so self-serious, I think it could be a really fun watch.
The second question we always ask, and I think I know what your answer is going to be based on what we've said a bunch of times in this, but if you had to pair it and create sort of like a double feature, what would be your double feature pair? Yeah, there you go. There it is.
The Rock and I guess Rocky. Maybe Rocky too.
Yeah, that's true. I guess Rocky. We also know that the Simpsons Writers Room does a summer movie draft every year. Do you already know some of the upcoming movies that you're hoping to get in your pool this summer?
No, I don't understand it. I don't like it.
Fair enough.
I do it, but I don't ever understand why I'm doing it or what I'm doing. So, and people talk about it every single day, and I check out. I'm just like, I don't know. We did get instructions from, I can't remember which writer it was, Nate, but that explained like how it works. And I'm not a sports person, so I don't understand fantasy drafts to begin with. And it makes no sense to me at all either. So you're not
very detailed.
People have strategies.
It's very detailed.
They have strategies. And then like when I was kind of still pretty new at the show, there was some issue with somebody was, I think, getting a new banner because they won and they wanted to get different colors than their other banner, and then the guys were like, Council of Champions meeting, Council of Champions, and all the guys who had won went into the other room and closed the door, and then like talked for a while and then came out and like whatever their decision was, and I was like laughing because I thought it was like, oh, this is that we're having fun, this is so stupid, but I was like, oh, they're deadly serious about this, like this isn't a joke, like they did not like whatever change was. I can't really remember the change that was trying to happen, but like they didn't want that to happen in the Council of Champions, which yelling out Council of Champions and all the champions assembling in a room was apparently a thing that's happened before because they all knew exactly what was happening. And I was new.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is so silly. Whenever we do the draft nights, we get barbecue or something like that. And people have strategies. And I'm just like, I bet on things that I just don't care about because I just want to go home. And then they would be so upset if they heard me saying this. So I don't tell them.
No, but I hope that
enjoy the barbecue.
Pays off Yeah, I would. That would make it almost better if you ended up accidentally winning one year with that strategy. And Council of Champions, you can join their ranks and
right.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, you get a banner that hangs in the room, and like you would think, oh, you get a better parking spot for that year, but all of our parking spots are right outside the building, so there's no good parking spot. So you just get a banner in your parking spot.
Right.
Perfect.
But yeah. Anyway.
Well, hey, a prize is a prize.
I'm looking forward to answer your question. I'm really looking forward to Project Hail Mary, but that's not a summer movie. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, just before we started recording, I saw it this week at a press screening.
Really?
It is my movie of the year. It is phenomenal.
Really?
You're gonna love it. Did you like The Martian?
Yes, and I read the book.
Okay, so then I think you're definitely gonna love it. I cried multiple times. I laughed I laughed so much. It's so good. Can't say it. I have to write my review by the end of the week, and I'm just struggling to start because I'm like, I don't want to come across as just like, it's like my review could literally be just shut up and go see it. It's incredible. So
that makes me so happy because I love the book.
Yeah, I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. So
cool. Thank you.
I've also made a snarky remark on social media about.
Wasn't snarky.
It's just an observation about the way the film was shot on social media and got ratioed by the filmmaker.
Oh,
both the director and
it's hilarious because he loves the
cinematographer.
Right? Yeah, it was like not at all intentional, and he genuinely loves it.
Do you feel like you were able to convince them that you really love it?
I hope so.
Go when your review comes out. Yeah.
Christine, thank you so much for joining us. This was so fun to chat with you. Obviously, folks should tune into The Simpsons on Fox, Hulu, Disney Plus for more of your awesome work. But is there anything else you want to plug?
No, just ice. Yeah, and adopts pets. Don't shop.
Yeah, that's appropriate for this episode.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I have a really quick funny story.
Of course.
I'm gonna foster a dog, so it's taken a while to be okay with opening my heart to another dog, whatever. So I had a call with a rescue about this pit bull that I maybe was gonna foster, and they always ask you to give a video of your house so they can see that your fence is okay and whatever. And inside of the house, to make sure there's no wires everywhere, whatever. So I sent a video and the woman called me back and she's like, great. No, so I didn't see any wires and I didn't see any grapes around. So that's really good. I don't know if grapes are really toxic to dogs. So yeah, that's good. I didn't see grapes anywhere. I was like, you have no idea.
You just put out the biggest PSA about that. You can imagine.
Exactly. I thought about it for a second, but then I have to explain what I do for a living and everything like that. But I immediately sent a voice memo to my price. I was like, you will never believe. But this lady is always on the lookout for a floor stash of grapes. Because she told me this crazy story about her dogs and grapes. But so I was like, I think we're doing the dog's work, putting that message out there. So that's all.
It's true because I knew they couldn't eat chocolate, but I was not aware of the grapes thing. So now, my sister has a dog, and I will make sure to never accidentally feed it grapes.
Yeah.
So.
There was a thing in an early version where Quinta's character had Adrian had a gun that shot grapes, and that's what she was threatening the dog with. Because we didn't want her to be like, oh, I have a gun, I'm going to try to. So yeah, that we ended up taking that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
grape gun. I love that. Well, thank you, Christine. This has been such a pleasure. Please come back anytime. And thank you so much for joining us.
You got it.
All right, Nate. So now that we've sort of discussed the episode and lightly discussed National Treasure, take me back to the beginning. How does this movie get made?
Yeah, so the thing that I find most interesting about the history of this movie is that the producers are really important to its existence, and in some ways were sort of more than the writers, more than the directors, they came up with what the hell this thing was going to be. So it's the late 90s. Lucas and Spielberg have not made an Indiana Jones movie in a long time. Right?
And by all accounts, everyone thinks they're never going to make another one of these. This is a dead franchise. They're certainly not going to make two more of these.
Right, exactly. And yet, it leaves this vacuum where people are like, what I really want is just another Indiana Jones movie, right? Just make another Indiana Jones movie. And so one of the people hankering for that kind of movie, like looking to fill that void, is DreamWorks TV executive Charles Seegers. So Seegers at the time, I was trying to figure out exactly the timing of this, and I think I have an idea, but he was researching a Lewis and Clark miniseries at the National Archives.
Okay, I feel like I remember hearing about this on something else. Like, I'm aware of this idea of a Lewis and Clark miniseries type thing. So
yeah. So my guess at what it was, I looked around, like he doesn't have a credit on anything like that, right? So my guess is that it was probably Ken Burns's 1997 miniseries on Lewis and Clark. That just makes sense, like timing wise and like the subject matter, and you know, Ken Burns would send you to the National Archives to do research, right? So I think that's probably what it was, but he doesn't have a credit on that, so who knows? But that was sort of where like the idea for National Treasure started brewing. So he was at the National Archives and he starts hearing about the Declaration of Independence. He looks over at the display and he sort of feels sad because there aren't that many people actually like lined up to see this thing, and he's so moved by it and thinks it's such an important document and represents all this stuff, and yet people were like not excited to see it really at the time. And then the other thing that he starts to see is that there are people actually, I believe, taking it out of the case for conservation. Right. Because it's fading, it's brittle, etc. And so they do actually have to take it out sometimes to fix it, right? And so he starts getting curious and he starts asking the staff, like, you know, okay, so it's very safe inside this case, but when you have to take it out for conservation, how do you stop it from being stolen? And he starts imagining this heist of the Declaration of Independence. So Seegers takes this idea to another producer, Disney marketing head Oren Aviv, who basically is like, okay, that's a pretty good idea, but it's like half a good idea. Right. And so together they come up with the rest of the plot of the movie, which involves all these different clues and locations and all this kind of stuff. Right. But this is all like, you know, in the late 90s maybe. And, you know, this movie doesn't come out for several years after that. And there's sort of a reason for that. The script is a problem. Because these guys had this sort of idea, and it's like a good hook for a blockbuster, but it was too convoluted. There was just too many moving parts, too many ideas. And I think that, you know, it was kind of jumping from just like set piece to set piece, clue to clue, location to location. And you just were kind of like marching down this checklist of stuff. And so ultimately it ended up taking 9 screenwriters to actually crack the script from 1999 to 2003. And the duo that finally does it is Marianne and Cormac Wibberley, who are a husband and wife duo.
Great last name.
Yeah, Wibberley. It is a good last name. They finally like figure it out. So it's kind of interesting. They come from like kind of a background in kids movies and then eventually broke into action movies with The Sixth Day. Have you ever seen that movie?
I remember that movie coming out. I have not seen it, though.
Okay. So I think it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of sci-fi action movie. Very much in the vein of other things he'd done, you know, over the course of the 90s. Yep. I remember it because I watched it in my church's confirmation class. Okay. Because I think it's about cloning. Well,
okay.
We watched. This is also the class where we watched the movie version of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, but that makes sense, Nate.
Yeah, well, I think it was like because the sixth, and maybe even the title was a reference to the Bible or something. Okay. And it's about cloning, and you know, we had some, you know, young pastor who was really big on, you know, ethics and stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was that's my context for that movie.
Premiered at TIFF apparently. So there you go.
Must be good then.
It must be good.
The Wibberleys met Jerry Bruckheimer when someone at JB Films tapped them to write a script for Bad Boys 2. And their agent was like, do not get involved with this National Treasure thing. You'll probably hear about it. It's bad news. The script has already had 8 different like screenwriters on it, but they actually took it anyway. So, you know, they finally get this thing underway. And a lot of the shooting actually is on location in D.C., Philadelphia, and New York. all of the stuff at Independence Hall in Philadelphia is actually shot at a perfect replica of Independence Hall that's built on Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California.
That's hilarious.
That was just built by the owner of the farm. He was just like, I don't know the story exactly, but I assume it's just like he loves America, loves Independence Hall, wanted to build it for himself in the 1960s. So they were able to use that for all the scenes where, like, you know, Nicolas Cage just like running on the roof and all that stuff that you wouldn't really be allowed to do on a national park site. So the movie comes out. Interestingly, again, speaking of sort of gaps in the movie ecosystem, this movie comes out right between the release of the Da Vinci Code book and the Da Vinci Code movie.
Yes, and we're going to get into all of that, I think, because I've got some thoughts there, but
I bet
that's interesting that where it lands. Okay.
Right. Because the Da Vinci Code's obviously like right in the same universe as this type of thing, and maybe filling some of that Indiana Jones gap and other stuff, but it's in the air, this kind of thriller. I think it's important to note that, of course, this movie today has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes for the critic score and a 76% on the audience scale, which tells you a lot about what this movie is. It is kind of a crowd pleaser, but also not a good movie per se. But, you know, I guess really the big question at the end of this episode is going to be like, how entertaining did we find it as viewers? Because we know it's not a masterpiece. It's not, you know, Citizen Kane. I did love this, just this chunk of this review from Roger Ebert, which summarizes some of the disdain, I think, that critics had for this movie. Roger Ebert gave it 2 out of 4 stars, and he said, "National Treasure is so silly that the Monty Python version could use the same screenplay line for line."
Well, okay. Interesting. I mean, yeah, maybe. With some British accents.
I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. This movie makes $347 million on a budget of $100 million. So pretty solid.
Explains the sequel.
Yep, spawns the sequel, and I think there's also a TV series, possibly.
Yes, I think there's a straight-to-streaming TV series, and then the often, like, long gestating threequel is apparently in the works, and has been in the works for years, and I think maybe is finally actually going to happen, but...
It seems like there's movement, for sure. Have you seen the sequel, the first sequel?
I have not, no.
Okay. It's about as good as the first one.
Oh,
so,
okay.
You know, it's like if you're really hankering for, you know, this kind of movie, it's like it's on par, I'd say.
I think in order for us to unpack the rest of the film, Nate, we should maybe do the thing that we don't necessarily always do, which is be kind of like upfront about our thoughts on the movie.
Okay.
I guess I'm curious. Like, what are your initial thoughts on this movie? Because I have a feeling you maybe like it a little bit more than I do. I don't know.
The thing about this movie is you almost have to surrender yourself to it, I think, to enjoy it, because it is a tremendously stupid movie. And, you know, I said to Christine that, like, what it reminds me of most is when I was, like, maybe 11 years old, watching TV for hours at a time, and in the evenings after The Simpsons had aired, I would often watch like TLC or the History Channel or A&E, and like all of those channels that just were producing so much absolute bullshit that was ostensibly educational content about history, but was actually about aliens building the pyramids. And,
yeah, of course.
And like the most like occult parts of like Nazi history and just stuff like that.
The Illuminati, all that stuff.
The Illuminati. Yeah. I think there's even a reference to the aliens thing in this movie.
Same way they built the pyramids. The Great Wall of China.
Yeah, the aliens helped them.
And look, when I was 11 years old, I did watch that shit. And and I did find it interesting and entertaining. And so it sort of taps into that for me. And I think overall there's an enthusiasm to it that I do appreciate, like in the performances and a sincerity in the performances that I appreciate. And I think the set pieces are sort of serviceable, but the thing that is most enticing about it is that they're places you could go to, right? And like that's the difference between it and Indiana Jones, is that
Right.
like Indiana Jones is in places you never get to go to, and they're often fantastical, right? This is like, no, this is like if you go to Philadelphia, you'll just go see the places that the film is shot. And so that, I think that it taps into a different thing of like, oh, like this secret world of like action and adventure and mystery is right below the surface of real life. And there's something very enticing about that, that I think when this movie's at its best, that's what it's tapping into, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So what about you? Tell me about your experience.
I mean, look, I don't dislike this movie. It's like, it's a fun romp. It's very watchable. And, you know, the thing that's kind of, I think, not going said is that, like, it's also a Disney movie. And, like, it's a live-action Disney movie of the era where they were sort of making these, like, family-friendly action-adventure movies. I'm thinking of, like, all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies that are, like, yeah, they might have some, like, scary moments, but they're generally going to be appropriate for, like, a PG audience. Like, I don't even think this is PG-13. It's probably just, like, straight PG.
I think this is, PG.
So, you know, it's not necessarily intended to be viewed in the same light as maybe an Indiana Jones movie, which famously is why PG-13 now exists.
Well, the second one is, but the first one was a PG movie, I believe.
True, but I think that's just because the PG-13 rating didn't exist. Yeah, and that because that movie is pretty. You know, there's some shit in that will give you nightmares. And again, like, don't get me wrong, like, I would kill for a studio to make a movie with this vibe and, like, at this scale again. But I think the thing that bugs me is that, like, it's kind of forgettable. Like, I watched this Tuesday night, and as I was doing my notes for tonight's record, I, like, kind of couldn't really remember much of it. Like, nothing's unique about it, be it the plot or like the overall style. Like, I think the conspiracy adventure thing has kind of been done better. And we're going to talk about that. And Turtletop has like no real stylistic inclination here. Like, he's kind of just ripping off Tony Scott for the most part. Like
ripping off so many things.
Yeah. Like anytime there's like a flash of style, you're like, oh, this is just ripped off of somebody else who's done it better, and you're doing like a bad TV version of it almost.
Tony Scott or Soderbergh or
CSI even, which again is a Jerry Bruckheimer show, but like, so it's, you know, I guess that's my takeaway. And then also too, I think the thing that also goes maybe not unsaid is like, it's kind of just hard to get behind the Americanism of it, because it's like, I'm not American, so like all these locations they're visiting has absolutely no like emotional impact for me. But it's also like, yeah, America's been around since 1776 or whatever. But it's not like, again, I can't help but draw connection to like the Da Vinci Code and stuff. But like the Da Vinci Code is going to locations that is like Renaissance art, like stuff that has been around for so long. And when you're talking about the Knights Templar and all the way back to Jesus, it's like, well, that kind of makes sense, because it's like these places are literal ancient cities built, like London, you know, is this ancient city that has existed since like whatever 1200 AD or whatever. So I guess it's just, that's the other thing too, is it kind of just feels like it's not even necessarily earning its adventure conspiracy elements, because it's just like, well, this is so absurd. Like, there's no way the Knights Templar went to America and then we're trying to mess with the British. Like, it's just, all of it is just so absurd. And again, like, it's not meant to be analyzed that way. And I had fun watching it, but it's just like, I then immediately forgot about it. And I think that's the worst thing I can say about it, is that it leaves no real lasting impression. It's like the quintessential definition of like a junk food movie, in that it'll fill you up for the time you're eating it, but then you'll be hungry again an hour later. So I guess that's sort of like, I guess I've tipped my hand maybe a little bit about the rest of the discussion, but I just felt like I needed to get that out there, that like, it's not that I think this is a bad movie, and any of my criticisms of it are not to say that like I think this is a bad movie. I just also don't think it's a very good movie.
No, and like I definitely would not disagree with that. And definitely on the style front, like this movie's absolutely just ripping off like other movies that are basically contemporaries with this movie.
Yeah.
You know, that were only made a couple years before, but it's just ripping them off pretty wholesale. And, you know, one of the things that I hadn't considered is that, like, I actually have been to most of the sites in this movie. I've been to the places in DC and Philadelphia and New York. So, like, they're maybe more meaningful to me in that way. But yeah, like, I generally have a good time. I feel like it does definitely roll off my back as well, where I just, like, I couldn't tell you what the actual conspiracy is. Like, there was a treasure.
No sense. Yeah.
But look, you know, here's the thing, right? Explain the plot of a James Bond movie to me. You know what I mean? Like, where it's like, often it's like there's a MacGuffin. The MacGuffin is the treasure, and there's a bunch of reasons to get from set piece to set piece.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But here's why I think you have just sort of unlocked why it bugs me. Is that there's a treasure, and like Indiana Jones has a treasure, and like, but this takes the time to tell us why all of this nonsense isn't nonsense and is important. Whereas like in a James Bond movie, it's just like you have to get the Solex device. We're not going to explain what the Solex device does or why it's going to end the world, but you just know if you don't get the Solex device, the world's going to end. Okay, now just go and get the Solex. So it's like, I think that's what the issue is that it is almost taking itself too serious for how ludicrous and silly it is. Like, it's a buried treasure story. It's like doing Treasure Island and being like, okay, but we're going to explain to you why this treasure is really, really important. It doesn't matter. It's just a treasure. Just move on.
Well, I nearly asked this of Christine as well. But like, you know, they keep referring to Franklin's gold, right? Which is just a funny phrase in and of itself, right? And this movie is not that far off from Franklin's gold, right? But like the thing that it made me think of the most is the sequel to City Slickers, which I believe has
Legends of Curly's Gold, yeah.
Right, the Legend of Curly's Gold, right? So it's like, that's what it makes me think of, is like that type of movie where it's like they're going after, you know, a treasure and there's a treasure map, or like, you know, the Goonies, or like any number of things like that is also kind of doing the same thing. But you're right, like they layer on this element. Like, this is where I think maybe like you either take or leave this movie, is that Nicolas Cage is delivering his role of Benjamin Franklin Gates with a tremendous amount of sincerity, right? Yeah. He's like, this guy cares about history. History is his superpower, and he loves America. Right?
Yeah, he sure does.
And so like a lot of the conspiracy, the reason why it's meant to be serious and meaningful is because of the main character's patriotism and sort of like care for the details of history. And so I feel like if you kind of buy into that, maybe that can kind of carry you through all of the nonsense. But if not, then you're kind of like, this is just so much bullshit.
Yeah, and again, like, it's a kid's movie. Like, I guess that's the other thing too, is we're maybe giving it a little, I don't want to say a little more credit than it deserves, but like, I think we're maybe looking at it with the lens of taking it seriously when it's not really intended to be taken seriously. And again, I think that would explain why, you know, critics are giving it 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences are giving it 75%. Because it's like, well, you're grading it on a different curve maybe. But I do think that, like, when you explain to me the genesis of it, and it's like, this guy kind of had like the nut of an idea, and then they just kept adding more and more onto it to try and flesh it out and make it more of a movie. It's like, maybe at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, it could have just been about a guy who has to steal the Declaration of Independence, and like, that's a movie in and of itself. It doesn't need anything deeper, any deeper meaning to it than that.
Yes.
I don't know.
No, that could have been quite good, because then, you know, like, you could have a whole sort of subplot about like, you know, he has to keep convincing himself that this is the right thing to do. And like, he's not crazy, because it sounds really crazy. But instead, this movie kind of just like, he just steals the Declaration of Independence and is completely sure of himself. And then like, it goes on to do a whole bunch of other things. Why don't we talk a little bit about the characters and the cast? Because I do feel like, you know, I found this quote where, God bless him, John Turteltaub, director, said, you know, it's got its share of special effects. It's really a big action adventure comedy. But for me, I still think of it as a character piece. Adam, is this a character piece?
That is the most insane statement ever. This movie is not that. And to be clear, I think I've made it pretty clear on this show. Yeah, like I like a movie that is plot heavy and not just like an internal reflectionary character piece.
Yep.
This
movie moves, to be clear. It definitely moves.
Definitely moves. No, this is not a character piece. Like, these are broadly drawn caricatures that, yes, there could be some interesting elements. Like, I would love to understand more about Sean Bean. Like, where does he have this money? Why does he have a bunch of henchmen? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy?
Let's start with Sean Bean. It's an unusual place to start, but it is one of those things where it's like, his character is the most lightly drawn, and his motivations are completely inexplicable. He's sort of like, he's just a bad guy, right? He's like the opening set piece of this. They go and find this sunken ship called the Charlotte up in the Arctic, and it is literally like beat for beat the opening of Raiders for the Lost Ark, right? It's exactly the same. They're going into a temple that's in a remote place. One of the people on the expedition betrays all of the others, right? Mm-hmm. And then they have to escape the temple, or in this case, the ship, very quickly in order to survive, right? It's literally the exact same opening of the movie. However, it's in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the betrayer dies in a trap.
Yes.
And this movie, that very thinly drawn character becomes the villain of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I know we wanted to talk about characters, but I think it would be good to just get this out of the way. Like,
sure.
I know it's unfair to compare this to Raiders of the Lost Ark, arguably the greatest adventure film ever made.
Yes.
And it's directed by arguably the greatest blockbuster filmmaker of all time. But, like, it's not doing itself any favors that it's, as you say, essentially borrowing beat for beat the opening, like, sort of idea, conceit of that movie. And having recently rewatched Raiders of the Lost Ark, I cannot help but, like, compare the two. And boy, oh boy, does this thing pale in comparison to what Spielberg and Douglas Slocum were doing. Like, it's just... they are on a completely different level. Like, this movie in many ways, and again, there's no real sense of style, and what little style there is borrowed from other stuff in a way that feels like TV, for lack of a better term.
Because that's I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, TV would do that. It's like, okay, well, this movie, The Matrix, has made bullet time really popular, and then all these TV shows started doing their sort of cheapo version of bullet time. Like, that's what this feels like to me. That, and it also feels so video gamey. Like, everything about that opening sequence, and like most of the movie in general, like, I think this would be a really fun video game to play, and you would actually be like, hey, this is a pretty decent plot for a video game. But as a movie, you just sort of like, because all of those things that feel lightly drawn would matter less because you get to play all the action sequences,
solve all the puzzles, and shoot all the bad guys. Yeah,
but when you don't get to actually do those yourself, you're just sort of like, well, this is a little thin. And it's funny, did you ever play Uncharted 4?
No.
So that game literally ends with a sword fight in a hull of a ship that's like caught fire. And also, weirdly, young Nathan Drake is dressed very similar to young Ben Gates. Like, it's one of these things of like, I wonder if they were taking inspiration from this, but yeah, there's just something about like going into a sunken ship that's in the Arctic and then eventually is like set on fire. Like, it just feels so much like a friggin' video game to me, and not in a good way. So, yeah. Okay, anyway, that's a little side tangent. So back to Sean Bean.
Yes, Sean Bean. Right. Again, though, but like, there's a reason, I think, why that character in Indiana Jones just dies, and then they move on to a bigger and better villain. I don't feel like Sean Bean gets a lot of additional character development beyond that moment, where it's just like, there's a treasure, he wants it for himself, and, you know, Benjamin Gates, our valiant hero, does not. He wants it, you know, it belongs in a museum, damn it, right? That's pretty much it.
Not only that, it's weird because it really feels like when you first meet him, it's not like the classic sort of Indiana Jones thing of like, oh, these are two archaeologists who just happen to be working together, begrudgingly respect each other, and then become sort of like they're both fighting over the same thing. They genuinely seem like they're friends, and then all of a sudden the guy backstabs him, and like it's never explored again. Like, to your point, like, that's, I think, my issue with it is that he's not villainous or menacing enough to be just like a straight, like, quote unquote Bond villain, which like, again, he literally plays this character in GoldenEye. Like he's friends with James Bond.
True.
He's betrayed, and then he essentially puts into motion the entire events of the rest of the film. But so he's not like going full Bond villain evil, but also like there's no explanation for why he has seemingly a limitless amount of money.
Right.
Why he's got henchmen, which again, henchmen are always this funny thing of like, it goes like, what are the logistics behind it? What are they being paid? Why are
did
they
he put up a
dedicated
job
to this
description
cause?
on Indeed? Like, you know,
like,
how did he find these guys?
It's just, so none of this is explained, and maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be, but it's just, as a villain goes, he's not a very compelling villain. And then to just at the end for it all to sort of like, as Homer says, wrapped up in a neat little package when they're like, Harvey Keitel's like, someone's got to go to jail. And he's like, well, I can help you with that. And then they just cut to them arresting. Like, it's just, it's just so...
Also just, you've got to love a line that's just like, well, someone's got to go to jail. What?
Yeah. Why? Why does someone have to go to jail?
Is that how that works? Okay. Who do we want to talk about next?
I mean, I think we got to talk about Cage, because as we kind of alluded to with Christine, like this is post like indie heartthrob Cage. He hasn't gone full Wicker Man yet, but he's about to.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know about that. I think that the transition happens gradually, but like keep in mind he's already done Vampire's Kiss, which is pretty much, and like that was a while ago. So like. That's kind of like a preview of where he's going, and more of his roles end up in the vein of that movie. But like around this time, he is also doing Matchstick Men. That's like
he's fantastic in that movie,
which is amazing. He's also doing Adaptation around the same time, which is like another amazing performance. So, and both of, I was thinking about this. Both of those are more like how he's depicted in the episode we talked about than in this. In this movie, he's actually kind of reserved. Like he's pulling back on some of the Nicolas Cage-isms that I think he's become so associated with. Like he's not doing the like volume thing. Like he's not doing that in this movie as much.
To me, it's funny. Christine kept mentioning The Rock, and I certainly couldn't stop thinking about The Rock the whole time.
Yeah.
Being kind of like, I kind of wish we were watching The Rock right now. But I do feel like this is sort of like an extension of that character, because like that character's a scientist or a biochemist or whatever the hell he is. Whereas, and then in this one, he's, I guess, I mean, what even would you, is he an archaeologist?
I think he's a cryptographer, but technically or something.
Like, yeah, even that, like, Indiana Jones, at least they had the sense to make him a professor and an archaeologist. Like, even he's kind of badly drawn. Like,
I'm not sure what his day job is exactly.
He descends from, Benjamin Franklin Gates, like, he's a descendant
I think I can't remember exactly what the connection is, but like one of his ancestors maybe was the chauffeur of one of the founding fathers. Which I have to pause on this because I have a story.
Okay.
I was doing some family history like a while ago, and I found out that one of my relatives had his horse stolen by Paul Revere for Paul Revere's famous ride where he says, "The British are coming, the British are coming."
Oh my goodness.
The horse he rode was my family's horse. And
wow.
He donated it proudly as a patriot, apparently.
There you go.
I'm practically Benjamin Franklin Gates. That's what I'm.
So what you're saying is we could make maybe that'll be the plot of National Treasure 3, is that it goes back to Paul Revere's famous ride.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like that seems to be the amount of character detail. They're just like, well, we'll have him a descendant of someone important or vaguely important, and that's
like,
enough
I think
explanation.
It's interesting because like I think that's part of what makes it a kid's movie, is that you actually start with this character as a kid, right? Like he's like, it's hard to say exactly, but looks like he might be, a little under 10 years old, right? And he's learning about the family history from his father, right? And so like
grandfather. Because his father thinks it's all a bunch of hooey.
Yes, that's right.
It's just a series of
How could he
that
possibly believe that? I mean, come on. But it reminded me of like The Princess Bride, right? Or something like that, where you're setting up this sort of like, it's this tale being passed down from generation to generation. And in many ways, the viewer is meant to be like in the role of the child, hearing the story, right? So it's like you could imagine someone who's that age watching this movie and being like, oh, yeah. And then like when I grow up, I'll be an archaeological cryptographer who's, trotting across America looking for treasure.
I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
But look, I think that Nicolas Cage is what makes this movie work for me.
Oh, 100%.
This is what Christine was saying as well, right? Is that like his sincerity in this role, as ridiculous as it is, emotionally, he is tapped into like what this character has to be for this movie to work. He cares about history. He cares about America. He wants to do the right thing. For such a thinly drawn character, he makes that character come alive in a way that, I will say, I think most of the rest of the cast doesn't quite get there, which maybe brings us to like Diane Kruger and Justin Bartha.
Okay, so I like Diane Kruger in this.
Okay,
but
she's okay.
But again, I like what's her story? Like they kind of imply like she's because there's the whole thing with the coins and that's a really great collection you got, and like. It must have taken you a really long time.
Your Nicolas Cage isn't bad.
Thank you. And it's just like, so, okay, clearly she's also in love with history, kind of like he is. And like, that's kind of but it's just, they never get into it. And there's no, like, I mean,
she works at the National Archives or whatever, right? So it's like, there's like
lots of people work there, right? Like, it's just, it could just be a day job. But like, I guess, again, this is what as we're peeling back the layers, I'm like realizing maybe that's part of my problem with this movie is just like, there's no character development. And for Turtle Talk to say that this is a character piece, like, what are you talking about?
I know. It's definitely overstating it, I think. The flip side of it, though, just to play devil's advocate on Turtle Top's behalf. So I said in our Oscars episode, the worst movie I saw last year was The Fountain of Youth. Right? And I think when I think about the difference between this movie, which again is not like an amazing movie, but it's a pretty good movie,
serviceable movie,
and that, which is like a god awful movie, a big part of it is the characters,
right?
Because both movies are like full of nonsense exposition and all sorts of bullshit that doesn't actually add up, right? But this movie, as lightly drawn as they are, the characters are endearing, right? I want Nicolas Cage's character to succeed. And the other characters are like, whatever. They're not like amazing, but they're kind of likable. Whereas that movie, it's like, I could not tell you a damn thing about any of those characters. They felt so emotionally dead and by like just paint by numbers that you just didn't care. You didn't give a shit about what their journey was. So as much as it's like, yeah, these characters are very thin, maybe just because of the performances, I feel like that it does kind of elevate it above some very similar movies that are playing in that same water.
I mean, it's interesting because thinking about this as a heist movie, and one of my all-time favorite movies, just of all time, let alone heist movies, is like the remake of Ocean's 11, like Soderbergh's Ocean's 11. We've referenced it already, and sort of, how it has a sense of style that this movie wishes it had. And if you think about it, like there's 11 guys, so not all of them are fleshed out, although they sort of become a little more fleshed out over the course of the three films.
Yeah.
But the core of the film, Danny Ocean, is very well fleshed out. You understand his backstory. You understand why he's doing it. You understand his motivations. You understand like he's trying to get it. Like there's the whole thing with his wife, and because he is well-rounded and a well-drawn character whose motivations are clear and is obviously very likable, that allows the rest of it to not matter so much. And I think maybe that is, again, coming back to it, that's my issue, is like Nicolas Cage's character's motivations are just he likes America.
Well, but you know what? Well, no, but like you also have his whole family dynamic, right? Of like his grandfather believed in this thing and told him about it, and he believed it too. His father does not. It adds some color to his character,
and it does pay off in the end. I will grant
but Ocean's 11's an interesting counterpoint because I do think that like what I would say is I would argue that Danny Ocean in those movies is about as complexly drawn as Benjamin Franklin Gates. very different characters, but about the same level of detail. But I think your point about the cast, the size, just the size of the cast is well taken. That like, actually this movie might be able to get away with it if it just had more people.
Fair.
Right? Like, because if you have such a small cast, relatively speaking, it's like those side characters really need a little bit more to them. Whereas like Ocean's 11, beyond Danny Ocean and maybe Brad Pitt's character, right? Like they get away with like, you know, it's like each character gets a few gags basically that like are character development gags. Like they all have their thing and you get to know them through those things. But like they only get a little bit of screen time each, really.
Yeah.
Right. So like this movie would almost be better served by having more characters, a thing I would very rarely say about any movie.
Yes.
But like if it had more of a heist crew, then like it wouldn't matter that Justin Bartha's character is kind of like he's just the tech guy. Like he's just the same
generic 2000s
trope.
Era tech guy.
What a trope, right?
Comedic tech guy, I should say. Yeah.
You just had it was just like it was such a thing in this era, right? Like every heist movie.
Remember The Italian Job and Seth Green?
Yep.
Like,
I sure
which
do.
to me is sort of like the quintessential version of this character.
Yes, the best like encapsulation of the trope is that character where it's just like that's literally all he is the comedic.
But he had a backstory. He got ripped off by the guy from Napster. Like they even in that dumb movie. I mean, I love that movie. Let's be clear.
That movie's fun,
but it's so fun. But like even they had the sense of like we have to give this character a backstory, even if it's an absurd backstory. At least it's a backstory. Whereas like again, why is Justin Bartha working with this guy? What like
right?
What is going on?
No idea what
here?
their backstory is. Not even a hint of how they ever got connected, which is kind of like just a little touch would be like nice, you know, to connect them. Like, how did they ever meet? I don't know.
Again, what does Nicolas Cage do for a living? I don't know.
I don't know.
Treasure hunter is not a job. Like
no.
But
and I mean, if it is, he's not making a lot of money on it.
No, exactly. I mean, I think we also like this is a good point to talk about because you've already alluded to it, and again, this is sort of coloring my impressions of this. Is the Da Vinci Code element, the sort of conspiracy adventure, as it were.
Sure.
Because as I was watching it, there were the three things I kept thinking about was Indiana Jones, the Uncharted games, and the Da Vinci Code, and especially the Da Vinci Code, because the Indiana Jones thing is obviously like the natural thing that people think of, but Indiana Jones ultimately, like, because it's like there's the adventure element and the treasure hunting element, but there's no real like conspiracy stuff going on there. It's sort of just like, well, the ancient texts say that it would be here. We're going to solve where here was. We find it. Da 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 da.
Right.
Whereas the Da Vinci Code's whole premise is like there was this group of people that had this big secret and this treasure. And I guess they wanted to make sure that someone could find it someday as long as they were worthy. So they're going to hide a bunch of clues throughout history for if you're smart enough and you can crack the case, you can get the secret or whatever, which is like, so it feels very sort of like one-to-one. And I was wondering, I was like, okay, well, where does this movie come out in relation to the Da Vinci Code? And as you sort of mentioned, the novel comes out in March 2003. This comes out in November 2004, but has obviously been in development long before the Da Vinci Code.
Right.
But one has to assume that like the success of the Da Vinci Code is what gets this thing sort of kicked into high gear. Because like the Da Vinci Code was this massive like cultural thing.
Yep.
Which if people maybe don't remember this, but like it literally, even before the movie came out, like the book was this massive bestseller, must read. Like everyone I knew, I didn't read it at the time, but my parents and all their friends, like that was the gift everybody got that year was like, oh, you get the Da Vinci Code and everyone's going to read the Da Vinci Code. And like, it was this thing that, again, I think part of what, to your point of what people loved about the Da Vinci Code was this idea of like, okay, yeah, there's a conspiracy, but it's all tied to stuff that like I kind of know about. Like, I know what the Mona Lisa is. I could go see the Mona Lisa and I could like go to France and I could go to, you know, the Louvre and experience, I could have that sort of experience. Like they even put out the illustrated edition of the book that like had photos of all the art that's referenced. And I guess the thing is that like the Da Vinci Code thinks it's smarter than it probably is. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's like the whole conceit of it is probably equally as stupid as all of this, but it's more dressed up to seem more serious because it's talking about Renaissance art and architecture and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, the nut of it is the same sort of conspiracy nonsense. So that being said, like, I still think I prefer the Da Vinci Code to this, and I don't know why that is. Like, because they're both equally silly, and this would maybe arguably knows it's silly, whereas the Da Vinci Code thinks it's high art when it's actually not. But I don't know, there's just something about it that feels more... The conspiracy feels more alive to me and more plausible, and I'm more interested in uncovering the secret. Whereas here, it's just sort of like... And maybe that's what it is that the Da Vinci Code, they're trying to uncover a secret, but they don't necessarily know what that secret is. Whereas here, it's like, they're just trying to uncover some treasure. And maybe they don't know what the treasure is, but it's like, it's a more tangible physical thing. And until we get to the end, which we'll talk a little bit about. But I don't know. I just like, I feel like I just couldn't help the whole time watching this. And maybe, again, like, I recently, this past Christmas, reread the Da Vinci Code and watched the movie, so it was more fresh in my mind. But I just spent the whole movie sort of like doing this one-to-one comparison of being like, this other thing that I don't even think that the Da Vinci Code is that good. And but I still think it's doing this better. Yeah.
So I despise the movies. I think the movies are terrible.
Oh, the movies are awful.
Right. I think the book is a good page turner, and I think, like, to your point, the thing that the Da Vinci Code has, it is true that it is sort of like trying to gussy itself up with, like, the trappings of being something serious when it is deeply unserious. Yeah. But there is, like, there's a nugget of truth in, like, all of the sort of analysis that they do, right, of various pieces of art and architecture that this movie is not interested in going that deep, right? It's not like, well, when you analyze this painting, you can understand the symbolism means this and that. It's like, no, if you run across the roof of Independence Hall and take a brick out of the wall, you'll find a pair of 3D glasses that were made by Benjamin Franklin.
Or
it's just like insane. It doesn't make any sense.
You look at the Last Supper and the one apostle kind of looks like it might be a woman. Well, that's because it's Mary Magdalene and she's secret. And there's layers to it. Whereas this is like, let's rub some lemons on the back of the Declaration of Independence and it'll tell us where to go next. Like,
that's the thing.
Again, it's like video game.
I think all of the elements of the Da Vinci Code, or many of them at least, are rooted in some interpretation of actual works of art that is like legitimate interpretation. It's just that they're tying it to a conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the stuff that National Treasure is doing, it's like, to my knowledge, there's no sort of like secret chamber below Trinity Church in New York City.
Even when they brought up the Knights Templar, I was like,
wait, what are we talking about?
They had nothing to do with Benjamin Franklin. They were part of the Crusade, and like, what?
The whole flashback in that early moment where the grandfather's telling the story to the child, I was like, oh, I didn't know we were going to go this far this fast. I was just like, it's the pyramids and like the Knights Templar and then like the founding fathers, and it's all connected in this very History Channel kind of way where it's like, yes, the Illuminati, they connect it all, You
do get that great moment though where the grandfather's eye is superimposed over the unfinished pyramid, like on the back of the $1 bill, which is like, that is the one stylistic touch that I was like, okay, like that's kind of cool.
Right. And that's foreshadowing the dollar bill thing. Like, there's some stuff here.
But then, like you said, there's also 3D glasses that...
That's my favorite bit. Again, I'm glad they picked up on it.
They're not even 3D glasses. They're like holographic glasses that, depending on which lens you use.
Right. Yeah. Oh
which is also hilarious that he like didn't realize that the first time. Like he's playing with the lenses and then like but anyway, like
what a dummy.
Again, when you start to overanalyze this thing, it all falls
You cannot
apart.
think too hard about it, which is unfortunate because that is the premise of our podcast.
True.
So anyway,
I remember there was a movie. I don't remember exactly what movie it was, but it was a comedy, a recent-ish movie. And at some point they made a reference to Ghostbusters. And then I spent the rest of the movie being like, man, I wish I was watching Ghostbusters right now, because this movie is not working.
Yes.
And that's just sort of like kind of how I feel watching this, is like, man, I wish I was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even though I don't think the movie's very good, man, I wish I was watching The Da Vinci Code, or man, I wish I was playing Uncharted and like I was getting to run across the rooftops and find that one brick that happens to have the 3D glasses behind it. Like,
right. I would take this over the Da Vinci Code movie.
Okay. I guess the thing
that's a real Sophie's choice, but
I think the reason I would pick the Da Vinci Code movie is because it's in so bad it's good territory, where this is almost in good, not great territory. Like,
sure.
The Da Vinci Code is sort of like fun to watch because it's so ludicrous and thinks it's brilliant, and there's joy in that. Plus, it has Tom Hanks, but
it's a little campy.
Yeah, and again, like, part of it too is like, I also just think that the conspiracy there is far more interesting. Like, it's even if it's
ludicrous, a real mystery, not a treasure hunt. Like, that's part of it.
And I think that, but as a treasure hunt goes, like, we were texting each other, and I said, this movie feels like an Indiana Jones fan fiction written by a grade 10 who just finished his American history exam and like has all of this stuff fresh in his mind. He's like, what if I were to like, if you're into the American history thing, which clearly certain people are, trying to like solve a mystery about a hidden treasure in Philadelphia, like, maybe that's really exciting, but like, part of what makes Indiana Jones exciting is that they're going to these exotic places that you've never seen before. I mean, granted, the third one is Nazi Germany, but still, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing particularly exotic about going to the Liberty Bell.
Well, but I think that's part of the thing that I appreciate about the movie, is that like, it's trying to reignite that feeling of wonder about these places that like you might have been taken on. If you're an American like high school student, maybe you went there on a field trip, right? And they were like, yeah, here's this important place. It's important because history. And instead you have like Nicolas Cage feeling reverent in the presence of these things because they're so important to him. That like, I like what it's trying to do in that sense.
And again, I think that speaks to the fact that I am not American and don't give a shit about any of this. So it's tough. Enough. It's tough to like have that emotional connection or that sort of, lack of a better term, nostalgic connection to any of this, because it has no meaning to me.
Yeah.
And granted, if there was a Canadian version of this, it would have no. I don't think I would care either.
I mean, there should be a Canadian version of this. I think that would be kind of hilarious.
Stealing the Charter of Rights and Freedom from 1984.
Right, exactly.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau, when he signed this document.
Yeah, I don't know if it has quite the same mystique when, like, literally my father was there and took photos of it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's not ancient history. All right, should we talk about the heist? Because again, that was the nugget of this movie. That was like, we got to do a heist of the Declaration of Independence. So, what did you think? I mean, like, is this the set piece that they want it to be?
No, like, it's not thrilling. It's like it's the most egregious like TV fake Tony Scott nonsense. Like, doing the Mission Impossible thing of like, we're gonna show you how it could go if it goes off perfectly, and then showing you how it really goes.
Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking of that as like an Ocean's 11 sort of like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I always sort
the
of
rehearsal sort of thing is going on in other movies before this, for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, again, I think if the movie were more simple and it was just like, he's been contacted by some rich person who wants to own the Declaration of Independence, and so he has to just steal it. Like, that's more interesting to me. And then the movie became more just about the heist and less about this overarching conspiracy of like what is contained within the Declaration of Independence. Like, that would be more exciting and thrilling to me, because at the end of the day, like, the heist is over and done with pretty quickly and like very easily. And even they're explaining it, and he's like, the only way we can do it is if it's when they're in the restoration room. And I'm just like, what is Like, that's your like. This is the brilliant thing. Like,
that was the nugget of his thing, was that like it's because like I was talking to my wife about this, and she was like, "Yeah, I think that the security protocols with the Declaration of Independence." She's a librarian, rare books librarian. Is that like it literally like shoots into the floor if it's inside the case and there's a threat. It like goes underground. That's her.
Which they do show in the movie, but like.
But so it has to be out of the case being restored in order for it to be, stolen. I don't know. I didn't mind that stuff.
No, I guess it's just more the fact that, like, to my point of, like, nothing about this feels original. Like, how is it any different than if someone was trying to steal the Mona Lisa and tried to steal it when it was in the Restoration Hall at the Louvre type thing? Like, there's just, I don't know. There's something about it that just feels kind of like, eh. And again, maybe it's part of it could be the whole like being Canadian and having zero association with the Declaration of Independence, that I just like, I don't see this thing as like, I recognize that it has historical value, but to have this sort of mythic importance because of what it stands for, it's just like, it's meaningless to me. It's just like, it's another piece of paper. It's just another old piece of paper. Like, it might as well be the King James Bible. Like, it's just...
I mean, the thing I like about it is that, like, it's not being stolen for its monetary value, which is kind of interesting. And not that it's being stolen for its, like, whatever historic importance, but, like, because it has, like, this secret thing on the back of it. But it's, like, because it's not a thing that you usually think of as, like, oh, well, they're going to, like, sell it on the black market. It's like, no, you can't fucking sell the Declaration of Independence, right? Like,
exactly.
Right? I mean, like, everyone's going to know what it is. So, like, because of that, they're able to, like, show you a heist that you wouldn't necessarily think of usually, right? Which, so I appreciate that. The other two beats that I appreciate that I thought were kind of unique is them using the Declaration of Independence in the case as a bulletproof shield.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
A nice touch. And then also the gift shop beat.
That's my favorite beat of that whole sequence. Like,
it's funny.
It's great.
It's pretty good. Yeah,
and then, of course, to get the payoff.
Well, we have to say what it is. Yeah, I mean, like, so basically, he's like leaving. He's mostly gotten away with it, and he's got the Declaration of Independence rolled up, which again, I think my wife would take issue with. But he's going through the gift shop and gets stopped by the cashier and is forced to pay for it because she thinks it's a souvenir. Very funny. I thought that's like very clever, and like again, that's this movie at its best, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure.
So after the whole heist, I did think that this was an interesting thing that I found in my research from the Wibberleys in an interview about like them writing the script and like how did they crack it? Like what was it that was missing from previous versions of the script? So they were sort of talking about the scene right after the heist as being kind of like critical to the chemistry of the movie for them.
Right. The idea of like, did he get away with it or did he not?
Well, sort of the more so like, the change of temperature, I guess, going from like, again, one of the movie's biggest set pieces, like, what do you do next? And they end up going to his dad's house, right? To kind of like
we haven't mentioned this, played by Jon Voight.
Jon Voight. Oh my God. Yes. The White House's ambassador to Hollywood.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, but yes, he's playing Benjamin Franklin Gates's dad, and they go to his house to kind of like decode the map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. But what they said was the Wibberleys, the challenge with treasure hunt movies is keeping them from being episodic. You can't just go from clue to clue. That was the problem with the drafts of National Treasure that had been written before us. We learned very quickly that in order to build the drama and mystery, each clue needed to up the emotional stakes or shift alliances somehow. So, and as an example, they talk about this scene, and at first they got stuck. Like, how do you top that, right? How do you top a scene like that? And they came to the conclusion that you don't, right? You complicate the character's emotional journey, and that's how you kind of like move forward with it. And like, again, I think that they actually pull that off here, where it's like, you're going from this very technical sort of scene, very actiony sort of scene, to like, a father and son, like talking about the conflicts in their family and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And like, it does make sense. And again, when I think about Fountain of Youth, it's like, it doesn't really pull that off, that sort of switch between the two different like modes, I guess, quite as well as this. So I'm curious, what was that scene like for you?
I mean, I like creating this sort of, again, a little bit of character motivation of the dad is the sort of like non-believer and the son is, chasing after this thing that the dad thinks is nonsense. Like, that does create this interesting dynamic. I guess my problem is, again, it's just like, kind of to the dad's point, it's like, the clues just lead them on another wild goose chase that's going to lead them on to the next goose chase, which is just going to lead them on to the next set piece. Like, they're in a weird way, they're sort of underlining the fact that there's really not... What's their plot here? It's just like, we're going to just keep having an escalating series of clues, which again, in a video game, makes a lot of sense. You got to and like, this is an opportunity to do this kind of puzzle, and then the next set of clues is an opportunity to do this kind of set piece, and like,
yes.
But in a movie, it's just sort of like, to their point, we got a bunch of numbers. What do they mean? Oh, well, they're actually like references to a bunch of letters Ben Franklin wrote. Like,
that he definitely knew in advance were going to be historically important and kept forever.
And was then able to somehow encode on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Like, again,
right.
When you start to pick up these threads, like, it's not designed to do that, but...
Well, okay, so this is my favorite ridiculous thing in this movie, which is that, like, so that whole speech that the father gives where he, like, chastises Nicolas Cage and says, like, the whole thing is ridiculous. His theory about why Nicolas Cage is wrong is that the founding fathers created an endless trail of clues that doesn't lead anywhere to distract the British from, like, fighting the war? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's actually more complicated than what Nicolas Cage believes. It's not like an Occam's razor thing of like, you're really overcomplicating this. It's really just this. It's like, no, he believes in an even more insane conspiracy. This fucking movie, man. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, it's just logic. When you try to apply logic to this movie, it doesn't make. And again, it's not asking us to. So like,
no, it's not. We
recognize we're being a little hard on it, but
let's talk about the sort of climax and conclusion. So, we kind of talked about the whole like Philadelphia trail of clues, right? And then they follow all the clues to New York. By this point, Nicolas Cage has been like taken by the FBI. They have to get him back on the USS Intrepid, and then they go to Trinity Church. But like at this point, Ian, the Sean Bean character, is kind of part of their crew because he sort of blackmailed them into.
Yeah, it's sort of like a double cross, triple cross sort of.
Right, because he like kidnapped the father, so then they have to kind of do what he says. So they're all going. Yeah,
this man like goes from being his best friend to now I'm going to kidnap your father and threaten to murder him if you don't help me find this treasure that may or may not exist.
Yeah, his motivation, I guess, is just greed, but like he doesn't seem that greedy, you know.
But he also seems to have endless amounts of cash. So what?
Right.
Like, although I mean, again, the billionaire class, it's never
right.
Enough,
It's
so.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't believe that motivation. Okay, so they end up at Trinity Church. I'm trying to remember. They get behind this like tombstone.
Well, yeah, there's a clue that it's
basement.
It's beneath something, and
right.
and they think it's a street, and then someone realizes it's a name, which means it's actually someone who's buried in like the crypt. They break open the crypt. There's a tunnel which leads to this elaborate series of rickety old bridges and elevators, much like in the Simpsons episode, which they do a very good job of replicating the look and feel of that sequence.
Totally. Yeah, and then they sort of like make their way down. They finally get to this room, and then it appears to be a dead end, right? And you have this whole thing between Ian and the Gateses, and Father Gates tricks him into thinking that it's actually in Boston, so he leaves them there. And then they like figure out their way in, but it appears to be empty.
Yeah.
Right? And someone consoles Benjamin Franklin Gates and is sort of like, well, like, you were right. Like, it's not here anymore.
John Voight's character, who has been dismissive this whole time, says to Nicolas Cage, you shouldn't be upset because this proves that there was a treasure. You were right all along. The treasure just isn't here.
Right. At which point, like, in my rewatch, I again, to your point, I had completely forgotten this movie, like, 100%.
Me too.
So in this rewatch, I was like, oh, is that how this movie ends?
Mm-hmm. I had the same.
They don't find the treasure, and, like, that becomes the driving force of the movie, is, like, they have to keep finding new trails to find the treasure. Like, oh, that's actually, like, kind of clever. And then, seconds later, they find yet another secret passage, and they're like, oh, there it is.
I mean, again, and
also it's like all the treasures of the world. It's not gold. It's like all the cultural treasures of the world.
Oh yeah. They might as well have the Ark of the Covenant in there. Like,
right. It's like, well, I mean, literally, they're like, oh, it's scrolls from the Library of Alexandria,
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Like, come on now. And then, of course, Ben is like, we should split it up among the museums of the world. It's all of humanity's cultural history. And I was like, I don't know about the politics of this. You know, it's like, you just send some Egyptian artifacts to, like, you know, the British Museum. Don't think that Egypt is going to be very happy with that. You can't just divide this shit up evenly across museums around the world. Mean, that's not how this works.
Again, it's a Disney movie.
I know. I get the spirit of what he's saying.
To your point, I literally, my note, because same thing. I thought, like, maybe that was the real ending and they weren't going to actually find any treasure. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And in my notes, I wrote, maybe the real treasure was the friends we made along the way. And
right, exactly. The fathers we made along the way.
It actually would be, like, kind of an interesting way to end the movie. But then I remember that it's a Disney movie and made for children, and they would be very disappointed. So it's like, no, they have to actually find a treasure. And it's like, again, it completely undermines the one, like, every time they're about to do something, I'm like, that's kind of an interesting choice. It's like, nope, we're going to go for the obvious thing. And, like, that's just...
Yeah. In the second one, if I'm remembering correctly, there's sort of, like, a historical conspiracy that's revealed that slanders the Gates' good name. And so they have to clear their name, and that's the motivation. And, like, in some ways, it's like, it would be better if you just, like, slammed those things together. So it's like, in this one, they have to clear their family name. Like, one of their ancestors is seen as, like, a traitor or whatever. And, like, that's part of the motivation. And then they don't find the treasure, but they clear his name. Yeah. That would, like, I actually think it would be better if they didn't find the treasure. But, like, you still need, like, some kind of catharsis at the end where it's like, and then you get to see that, like, you know, whatever, their name is cleared, or just simply, like, Nicolas Cage's character gets the respect he deserves for, like, uncovering the truth or whatever.
Yeah.
That I kind of would have liked that better, but, you know, like you said, it's a Disney movie.
But then you get the, like, comedic button at the end of the movie where Justin Bartha's all pissed off because it's like, oh, you made a bad negotiation, 1%. And he's, like, driving off in his, like, sports car that he doesn't know how to drive because it's a manual shift, like, gear shift. I mean, like I said, this movie's not bad. This is a weird thing. Usually on this show, I come in and I'm like, I didn't really like this movie. And then Nate talks me through it. And I'm like, oh, you've convinced me this movie's better than I thought. Now I think I like this movie less. because we've analyzed it and we're like, this movie's fucking bullshit. Okay, well, Nate, let's move on quickly to the Simpsons speed round.
Let's do it.
Are there any moments in this movie that feel like a Simpsons joke but isn't?
So there's a moment where Ben Gates toasts to high treason and then is like, oh, but, you know, like our founding fathers were committing high treason when they, you know, committed rebellion. And just the whole, like, sort of, like, accidentally blurting something out and then quickly backtracking felt like a real Homer thing for me. He could be practically talking to his brain in that moment.
Yeah.
What about you?
There's the moment in the opening set piece, or not technically the opening set piece, but that first set piece in the ship where one of the henchmen, there's like a riddle and one of the henchmen says, oh, it's prison. And then they sort of dismiss it. And then later on, they basically do a callback, and under his breath he sort of mutters, yeah, like prison. And to me, it has like a very Carl vibe. Like Carl always seems to be saying stuff and no one's listening to him. I mean, there's even that gag of like, this is why I don't say stuff very often.
See, this is why I don't talk much.
Right. So yeah, to me, just that idea of like someone not being heard or taken seriously has a bit of a Simpsons-y vibe to me.
Sure.
Nate, did you learn anything about The Simpsons from this movie?
We didn't really talk about this, but, you know, in the sort of season 7 and 8 era, like, you know, the Oakley and Weinstein years, there is this sort of stretch of episodes that have this kind of adventure vibe. And you could argue that, like, the Hellfish Bonanza episode is, like, maybe a better Indiana Jones movie than any movie that we got around that era.
Yeah, totally.
But, like, they really get the sensibility, and I think the thing that I realized from this movie is, like, they were probably just feeling that gap, too, of, like, man, there hasn't been a movie like this in a while, and we love these types of movies. So that's sort of what I was thinking about. Adam, does this movie still have some juice for some Simpsons parodies?
I don't know that the movie does, but I think the sort of genre of, like, conspiracy adventures do. Like, to my earlier point, there's nothing particularly unique about this movie outside of, like, the American history angle, which they already kind of covered with the Jedediah Springfield thing. Like, again, much more interesting deconstruction of that idea. So I wouldn't say, like, the movie itself has juice, but the sort of genre I definitely think does.
Yeah, totally. I would love to see more future episodes that kind of dig into that same vibe around Springfield.
Nate, are there any characters in this movie that could become a recurring Simpsons side character?
So I did enjoy the Ben Gates character in this current episode of The Simpsons. And I could see a sort of like conspiracy theorist that spouts exposition being a potentially useful recurring side character. I did also like, we didn't even talk about Harvey Keitel, who plays an FBI agent who turns out to be a Freemason. At the end of the movie. That also feels like perhaps it could be something that one could imagine there being some use for as a Simpsons side character. Both of them, like, could be useful in plots, I guess, is what strikes me about them. Like, having someone who's kind of tied into a mysterious world of historical conspiracies.
Somebody's got to go to jail.
Someone's got to go to jail. All right, Adam, are there other movies by this director or in this franchise that The Simpsons should parody?
I guess Cool Runnings? The only other John Turteltaub movie I've seen.
I don't know that they could get away with that these days.
Why? Jamaica's got a bobsled team. There's the idea of, you know, a fish out of water in a sports scenario. That's something that the Simpsons have done and could do again.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe
and a John Candy-esque mentor, like Homer. Yeah. Well, I guess Homer. So, yeah, I think you could do that.
Yeah. They could get into, like, I don't know, like bocce or something.
Yeah, totally.
Ping pong. There you go.
There you go. Well, it's Marty Supreme.
It's a Cool Runnings and Marty Supreme mashup.
There you go. Perfect. We'll pitch it to Christine and see what she says.
Yeah, right.
This is why they don't let fans write the show.
Book of Secrets was the one that I was like, you know.
Yeah, of course.
There again, like the whole like clearing your family name through a historical conspiracy, that actually does feel like you could do that of like, you know, Simpsons relatives and like trying to clear their name through like an adventure. That could be fun.
But again, that's kind of just the Jedediah Springfield thing again.
Yeah.
Except you'd be tying it to The Simpsons directly. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, Nate, that brings us to the age-old question. Do the strengths outweigh the weaknesses, and would you recommend this film?
I mean, today, yes, I would.
Okay, perfect.
I think this is one of those movies that's on like the knife's edge of our question about weaknesses and strengths for me, where it's like, you know, like on a different day, you could tip me in the other direction and I could just be like, no, you know, it's not a very good movie. And then other days I'm like, yeah, you know, I had a pretty good time. I'm like in a good mood. And so I just liked it better this time.
And again, if they were to make one of these today, like I would be so excited, like because
Exactly.
we don't get these kind of movies anymore.
Exactly.
But it's like it's a Gentleman C sort of equivalent of the type of movie that when it's done right, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark and it's a 5-star masterpiece.
I would give it a B-.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, it's but like just because again, like how many of these movies do we actually get?
Well, that's the interesting thing. So
and like this is like pretty good when you look at it in that grand scheme of things. There's like a handful that are absolutely incredible, and then there's a lot of real garbage, you know?
And to that point, we didn't really discuss my relationship with the movie. I came to it for the first time during COVID, and it was because I was going through I can't remember if it was Indiana Jones or I had just replayed Uncharted, but I was sort of like jonesing for no pun
so
intended.
to speak.
I was jonesing for that kind of like adventure thing that because Uncharted is very clearly riffing on Indiana Jones, and maybe the new Uncharted movie or the only Uncharted movie had just come out and it was such a disappointment. But I was like, I'm kind of like I'm jonesing for this kind of thing, so I went looking and I found the list of like movies like Indiana Jones that aren't Indiana Jones. And there's a movie called Sahara. Have you seen that with Matthew McConaughey and Steve Zahn?
No.
It is unwatchable. It is
This is
so
the thing.
bad. So it's like, you're right. To your point, there is actually very few of these movies made in a like modern, you know, post 1970s context, because obviously it's like the serials from the 30s and 40s that Indiana Jones is riffing on. But like in a modern, there's basically like Indiana Jones, the National Treasure movies, the Sahara movie, and then like Jewel of the Nile and like those two. That's basically it. Like this idea of like a fun adventurer who's searching for a hidden treasure type thing. And they're all other than Indiana Jones, they're all kind of bad. So it's like,
they're like differing degrees of bad. Like some of them are like more serviceable and fun, and then others are like downright terrible. And so this is more in the like it's serviceable and pretty fun, you know, like
it's right down the middle for me. But it's
Yeah.
just it's weird that nobody else has seemed to be able to crack this format, because it seems like it should be doable, and yet, well, I mean,
Indiana Jones hasn't necessarily.
I was going to say,
arguably.
if you look at the fourth and the fifth Indiana Jones movie, and
I'm a defender of the fifth one.
The fifth one. I
like
thought you were going to
it
say the
more
fourth
than
one.
most people. I don't have any trouble with the sort of like big twist at the end. Maybe, I think it could have been maybe handled a little better, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a pretty good movie.
Well, all this to say is we could cover Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
because the Simpsons,
we should someday.
So I think we now know that we absolutely need to, because that movie, we clearly want to watch and talk about that movie. So
yes, definitely. This is one that is like in the small circle that might actually like satisfy that urge and not leave you coming away being like, why the did I do that to myself? Right? I should have just watched Indiana Jones. Like there is an entertaining adventure in this movie. Don't go in thinking it's going to be great, you know, except that it is going to be fun and silly, and I think you will have a pretty good time. But yeah, what about you?
I mean, I don't necessarily think the strengths outweigh the weaknesses, especially after we've analyzed them to death. But I do think I would still recommend it because, and it comes back to the Mark Kermode idea of, does it do what it says on the tin? And for its flaws, which some might say we were nitpicking, I do think it achieves what it sets out to do. And I think also, too, the thing that makes this a little bit special or unique is that it is so kid-friendly. Like, there isn't... the conspiracy is so broadly drawn, and there's no real peril, and there's no real violence, and the conspiracy is something that even a young kid can kind of like understand. Like, again, I think maybe that's part of the issue that we're having with it, is that like Indiana Jones, kids obviously enjoy, but like they do have some tougher things to swallow, like not least of which being the Nazis. Whereas this is just like very safe. And like my kid's a little too young for it still because he's only 4, but I could show this to like some of my nieces who are, 8 and 10, and like they would probably have a really, really good time with this.
Totally.
And watching this with a young kid who's like getting into it, I think would elevate it. And again, it's a Disney movie, right? So I think maybe we're being a little overly critical, but I think the weaknesses outweigh the strengths. But I would still say that I can recommend it.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're expecting a child right now, and like one day I can definitely imagine showing this to my kid and then like going to Philadelphia and being like, this is the thing in the movie, like that's kind of an exciting prospect. So I think that's a good way to think about it. Adam, what about extra credit? What would you recommend pairing this movie with?
Well, Christine kind of took my initial idea, which was The Rock. Although, because of how we've recorded these, I know I recommend that in a different episode anyways, so that's fine.
You go.
I'm going to say, despite the derision you're going to give me, I got to go with the Da Vinci Code because, like, I do think it does what this is trying to do better. Like, maybe less so the treasure hunt aspect, but I think it does the conspiracy. As again, it is totally ludicrous and it is nonsensical. And that's another one where if you actually hold it to any scrutiny, it completely falls apart. But I find the mystery at the heart of that story compelling and interesting, even if it's utter nonsense. And always have, because there was a video game or a computer game from when we were like kids that did that whole plot line before the Da Vinci Code, which is why like when the Da Vinci Code came out, I was like, hey, I know about this. Like they covered that in Gabriel Knight. But
Gabriel Knight.
Yeah. So, but I have a fondness for that movie. But like I said, I know it's not a good movie, and it's very, very long, and it's very, very dark, like darkly lit. There's a great Mark Kermode rant about turning the lights on.
Turn the light on! I know it's a dark thing. For heaven's sake, Ron.
But I do recommend that. And then also, like, honestly, the entire Uncharted series, but especially Uncharted 4, which is like one of my favorite video games of all time. Like, it's just those games owe so much to Indiana Jones in general. Sure. But the scope and scale, like, again, when you watch this and you're like, this would be really fun to play in a video game, Uncharted would let you get to do that. And so if you haven't played those and you have the ability to, you absolutely should. Though, again, I mean, if you have a PlayStation and you haven't played them, it seems a little... But you said you haven't, so there you go. There's your homework.
Yeah.
What about you? What would you recommend?
So I struggled with this for all the reasons we've just been talking about. Of like, what movie like this do you recommend? Mm-hmm. So here's what I came up with. One of them is Secret of the Incas. Which have you heard of this movie?
I didn't even know that this is... No. What is this? Again, that sounds like a 90s CD-ROM game, but...
It totally does. But in fact, it is a 1954 adventure film starring Charlton Heston, which is... which is often credited as the inspiration for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay, that's cool.
And so my wife and I watched this movie relatively recently. Look, it's not fantastic. What I would describe it as is like there are parts of it where you're like, oh my God, like Indiana Jones just took this like wholesale. Like the main character is styled exactly like Indiana Jones. They literally just took his costume and put it on Harrison Ford.
Okay.
But it's in some ways it's a lot more like Casablanca. For one thing, it's not globetrotting. It's all in like one area, right? It's shot on location in Machu Picchu in Peru.
Well, that's cool.
Which is cool. And again, like was a big deal at the time. But like the spirit of the movie is more like someone comes to this town near Machu Picchu and they're looking for a treasure. And the character that would be Indiana Jones, played by Charlton Heston, is kind of more like Bogey in that movie. He's like a guy who hangs around the town and is very pessimistic and kind of existential about everything, right? He's like a gun for hire. He's not like as idealistic as Indiana Jones. He's kind of a scoundrel. So it's like it's a very interesting kind of like just point of comparison for this whole genre of being like, this was something that was floating around before Indiana Jones and after the serials, but had kind of started to synthesize some of the same stuff. So it's interesting. It's just like a curious movie.
Cool. I'm very intrigued by this.
Yeah. The other movie that, again, my wife and I watched together that I really liked, which is kind of like an anti-heist, is American Animals.
Oh, Bart Layton's movie, yeah.
Yep, Bart Layton's. Did you see that? I know you reviewed his new movie recently.
I saw it when it came out in theaters because I was such a huge fan of his first movie, The Imposter, and then heading into seeing Crime 101, because I had seen The Imposter multiple times, but had only seen American Animals the one time in theaters. I literally rewatched it like 3 weeks ago or whenever Crime 101 came out, and forgot how much I love that movie. Like I think it's really good. So good. It's so underrated.
Yeah, totally.
And it's funny because when you were talking about the heist thing and everything, I was going to say, like, there's this kind of interesting counterpoint heist in American Animals that shows that like that could be what the whole movie is about. So the fact that I wasn't going to mention it, but the fact that that's actually one of the things you want to recommend, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing that reminds me of it is just that, like, what they're stealing in that movie is, if I'm remembering correctly, it's Birds of America, which is a big, fairly famous book by Audubon that's like these amazing illustrations of birds across the United States. And so, like, the spirit of what they're stealing is quite similar, and there's some, like, interesting stuff in there about, like, the content of it, because it's not just cash, right? It's, like, an important cultural object. But then it is also kind of a deconstruction of heist movies, and like things don't go according to plan, but not in like a fun capery way, in a kind of like, everything's screwed up kind of way.
Yeah.
So I thought that movie's it's just really fantastic. The acting's amazing. It's interesting from a filmmaking standpoint because it also incorporates interviews, right? Like, as though it's kind of like a true crime sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's very different, but in some ways reminds me of the Declaration of Independence heist idea.
Totally. Yeah. No, that movie rules, and definitely co-sign that one. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Springfield Googleplex, the movie podcast for Simpson fans, as well as another season of the show. Yes, this is our last episode of the season, and we will be going on hiatus for a little bit, but we will be back in the fall with an incredible lineup of films and some even more incredible guests, including some absolute icons of Simpsons history. I genuinely cannot wait for you guys to hear what we've got in store for you. So in the meantime, though, please make sure you are staying subscribed to the show, because you never know when we're going to drop a bonus episode or one of our lobby chats, our sort of like alternate show where we talk about a film currently playing in theaters through the lens of Simpson fans. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed what you heard, please leave us a review and share this episode with the Simpson fans and film buffs in your life. We've also set up a support page on our website where, if you want, you can throw us a couple of bucks to help cover the cost of making this show. Until next season, Nate,
we'll see you around the Plex.
And then we've recorded the outro already, so we're good. Okay, well, then 11.
It's only 11:30.
Well, to be fair, we started very late.
I know.
So
I know we did.
But there we go. That's the season wrapped.
Hell yeah.
Done and dusted. All right, I'm going to stop recording.